Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Giant Pod with me, Andy Wrintmore. My guest this week is drummer Robert Bryan. We go back many years. We talk about his work with Peter Gabriel, Andy Partridge of FTC, Goldfrapp, Simple Minds, Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees. We also talk about some tales from on the road. We talk about getting his start in drumming. We talk about endorsements. We talk about the drums he's playing at the moment, the cymbals he's playing at the moment. And we basically have a great big natter about being drummers and our love of being drummers. As I said, me and Rob go way, way back to when I was studying in college. He used to come in and do some drum tutoring with us all, and that's how I met him. And it was really great, actually, to sit down and catch up with Rob recently, because it's been a few years since we've talked. And my God, do we talk. The energy in this is insane. The love in this is insane. Here it is, Robert Bryan on The Giant Pod. Here we go. I've just come out of the Phil Collins hole.
Matron.
Oh my God! Face Value. Hello, I Must Be Going. But seriously, I thought
that's your favourite, isn't it?
I think it might be. I think. Yeah. Oh yeah, we talked about this. Yes, we did. It was a late night discussion.
It was a late night discussion.
Yes. And I did hear both sides the other day, and I thought it was a bit boring.
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you on our little chat, and I this has been well documented, and no one cares what I say anyway, which is fine. But for me, you know, Face Value and Hello, I Must Be Going. No Jacket Required as well, but really, it's those first two. You can hear his heartache, and let's face it, music's about emotion always. Yeah. You can hear the aggression, the anger, and the sadness in all the songs. It's not always bitter, but some of the most bitter moments, my God, like In the Air Tonight, what a bitter song that is.
Yeah.
And on Hello, I Must Be Going. I Don't Care Anymore is another one, but that's kind of funky. I'm thinking of Do You Know, Do You Care? That is just like, every time I hear that, man, that pounding rhythm with those timpanis and stuff that are on it, and the way his voice sounds, and oh man. Again, we use the word haters, but let's say people that dislike him or take the mickey out of him. We said this in our conversation, but I always say listen to those first two albums, listen to his drumming with Genesis, early Genesis, listen to his drumming with Brand X, then come back and tell me that this guy isn't worth where he is. Yeah, but it's the Tarzan soundtracks and the Disney. Yeah, but that's just another side of what he's done. Yeah. What's wrong with that? You telling me an artist you like, and they say, well, David Bell. I say, right, well, Tin Machine wasn't great.
Right.
Tin Machine wasn't an amazing moment in pop history.
And he did Labyrinth.
And he did that as well, with which is quite dodgy because he's not wearing very much down below, and it's a kids show, and there's film, and there's moments where the camera just gets a bit too close for, which is why a lot of 80s girls used to like to watch it. But
can't half juggle balls though. Matron.
Matron, please, no. But yeah, so I'm with you on that. I think it's great. No Jacket Required. Yeah. He found a new love. He was happy. And the music sounds happy. And why not? My God, he'd been through 3 or 4 years being depressed. Let him be happy. And, I just find it really sad that he's kind of where he is now with his health and everything. I'm not saying some of it might not be self-inflicted. I don't know. Yeah. But I just think it's very sad. That clip of him on YouTube when he had to gaffer tape a stick to his hand to do that Motown album, that is just, one, brave to put that out for everyone to see, and that was the start of his sort of decline, I think, his illness and everything, and two, what a shame. I remember watching it and I didn't really know what to do, and I wish the person who told me to watch it, and it wasn't like, watch it because it's funny, or what, it wasn't that, it's like, just check it out, and I wish I hadn't, because it was really sad. The drummer that I remember and grew up with, he was gone, you know, and he is gone.
He's had talking of his career, I watched an interview with his book tour, which was Not Dead Yet, which came out a few years back.
I've got that. It's a good book.
Is it any good?
Yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. I haven't finished it yet, but
right,
yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah, I thought about picking it up. And
you should.
They said that He is right. So there's a very exclusive group of artists, right? And there's only three of them. They're people that were in a band that sold over 100 million records, and then did the same in a solo career. And there's only three of them. I'm pretty sure you'll get who they are. Do you want to have a guess?
Well, Paul McCartney's going to be one.
Yeah.
Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Eric Clapton, maybe.
No.
It's going to be someone really obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you put on the spotlight, it's just like, I can't think of anyone. Oh my God. Well, actually, that could get really deep because it could be like Rod Stewart. There could be loads of different people, really. But it's not, is it?
It's Michael Jackson.
I was going to say Michael, but I thought, oh no. But of course it was the Jacksons, wasn't it? Of course it was. Yeah, that seems obvious now. Silly.
That's incredible, isn't it?
It is.
It's Paul McCartney of the Beatles, Michael fucking Jackson, and Phil Collins.
I mean, two heavyweights and Phil Collins, but he is a heavyweight.
He is a heavyweight.
The thing is, he is a heavyweight, man. And as I say, it's that Tarzan, that Disney end of things.
I'm going to pick up that Tarzan album and I'm going to listen to it with the most open mind.
Me too. I'm going to play the out of it, man. I'm going to play the hell out of it and enjoy it, you know? Because even some of the singles that I've heard from that, I think it's Tarzan, wasn't it?
Yeah, he did do Tarzan, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Because I know Elton John did a few as well. But, you know, what's wrong with having strings to your bow? He was doing ballads even. I mean, listen to If Leaving Me Is Easy on Face Value. I mean, that song, Will Break Your Heart, is absolutely amazing. I played it to someone the other day who was not sure about it, and I put it on. I was like, no, listen to this. And they were like, fuck, that's amazing. And I said, I listened to the sound of the recording. Listen to his voice, listen to those harmonies.
Yeah.
Listen to where it jumps up just towards the end and it gets loud again and it comes down. It's just a work of art.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And if you're in that place, we've all been there at some point, that song, you put that on.
The Roof is Leaking.
Ah, that's great too.
Yeah.
I mean, every track, seriously, if you put any of those on these first two records for me now, I would probably not go skip it. I wouldn't. I would play it through.
Yeah.
Some of the later ones I might, because I still had them all, but I might sort of go, forward this a bit. You know? But the first two records, man, I could listen to them. And I did the other day after we spoke, I dug out my Hello, I Must Be Going vinyl, which is around somewhere.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Loved it.
It's good. It's good. The opening track, that's the one that's I Don't Care Anymore, isn't it? There's some heavy stuff. And I know you've talked about, is it Manu Katché? What's his name?
Manu Katché with
that reminds me of Peter Gabriel live in Athens, Lay Your Hands on Me.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is incredible. What a show that is.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Manu Katché is one of those drummers. Yeah, when he landed on, to me, he landed on So, which is the first one I'd heard him play on, and then I heard him. A friend of mine lent me an album by Joni Mitchell, which he recorded at Real World, called Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm from 1986 or 7, and he played drums on that too. And it was just the way he played, he just opened up a whole different thing. Because I mean, I loved the way Stuart Copeland used splashes and the same kind of fills, really, but it was a different band, different context, and he's a different drummer as well. He's more, always pushing, whereas Manu is like, because he had to in the Police. Come on, let's face it, it's a trio. It's got to be exciting. I get that, and I love Stuart Copeland.
And
I
he
love
has
the
one
Police.
hell of for a traditional grip on that snare. The crack,
the backbeat is immense, and so I've got a massive love for Stuart Copeland and that band and that period. But yeah, Manu's just got that more laid back, kind of world music vibe going as well as a bit more jazz in there. And it's not better or best, it was just different. Yeah. So when he did certain fills on the splashes and it landed differently, it was kind of like, oh my God, I could see the connection to Copeland, but it was a different world again. And it was wonderful. So for years, I lost myself in Us and anything that he was on. His solo album as well.
Come
where he
Talk
sings
to Me on Us is
well, yeah. It just makes you cry.
Yeah.
I mean, when I did my first DW playlist last year, I put on the first one up was Dance On by Prince with Sheila E. from Love Sexy, because that's just a great groove. That blew me away when I heard it at 18 years of age. It was like, whoa, especially on an album like that. But my second choice was from So. It's gone out of my head now, but it's I'll think of it in a minute. Okay.
Red Rain.
I want you close, I want you here. Yeah. Hear That Voice Again. Sorry, I had to sing the chorus.
That's a great song.
The drum track on that, man, that is amazing.
Yes.
Boom, ka, boom, boom, ba, boom. Boom, ka, boom, boom, ba, boom, boom. Ka, boom, boom, ba, da. It's like killer. It's like, oh my God. And all the feels in it as well. And it's just exciting, man.
Yeah.
So I had to choose that because, and I know some people messaged me afterwards saying, I knew Sledgehammer and all that business and Red Rain, but I'd never heard that. And I was like, yeah, what do you think? They're like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's Manu Katché. I was 16 and I heard that. My head exploded up my ass. Actually, how could you do that? But yeah. My head just exploded. It was just like, whoa, this is
incredible. The live version of Sledgehammer from the So Special Edition, which I think is live in Athens, it's got a 2-disc thing with it. The fills he's dropping into Sledgehammer are like, I've played this a million times and I'm just having fun with this now.
And you know the story of it, don't you?
Furnish me.
I'll keep it a very short story, but obviously I know some stories that I shouldn't share because of certain people I've worked with. But this is a story I can share, and everyone knows it really. But he was recording, and it wasn't at Real World; it was the studio, which was at Peter's house, which is in Box or near Box. Anyway, it's around.
Yeah.
And he said, before he literally had his bags packed to get the taxi from near Box or Bath, wherever it was, to go to the airport and go home, take him to Heathrow or Gatwick, wherever. And he said, I've got this track. It's rough, but do you want to could you play it before you go? And he said, well, like literally I'm out the door. And I expect he sorted out some, and he said, yeah, fine, I'll play it.
Yeah.
And it was Sledgehammer. And he went in there, maybe it's 1 or 2 takes. People say 1, maybe. A bit like they say Kind of Blue was 1 take, but we also know it wasn't because they've reissued the masters. And
there's loads
take
of 2 and 3 on there.
Exactly. It's like, how many times did they stop all blues and flamenco sketches and stuff? So what as well? Poor old Paul Chambers screwing up a few times. But and he did it a few times and he come out and they were listening. And Peter is like Prince or Steely Dan, already musician, like, we'll do some more. And he went, that's the take. And he went, yeah, but like he said, no, I'm telling you, that is the take. And I know people that have worked with Manu, and he's got this thing that whether it's the first or the third or the fourth or the 35th, whatever, he'll come in and go, that's me, that's it. And people will try, because Lorena McKinnon, I've been touring with lately and working with, she's had him on an album with her. And it was the same thing. Brian, the MD, said it was very much like that. He would come in and she would go, well, that was lovely, Manu. Maybe we could have another take. Maybe. And he was like, no, that's the take. Right. I'm telling you, that's me at my best. That is the take.
Right.
And that, man, I've got respect for that. That's such confidence, man, to say, no. That's me. That's me done.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
You pay me now and I go.
Yeah. It's kind of like, whoa, not many people can do that.
Yeah.
And I know people who've worked with him, as I say, like Lorena and Charlie Jones, who said he's a lovely guy, really warm-hearted. And, he's not like coming in and saying, right, I'm done, so I want to go now. Like he's really there for the music, but he's really passionate that when he's got a take that he thinks has got all the right elements, that's it, and what can you say? That's what's made him a millionaire, as well as his French TV career, of course. But what a musician.
Talking of Kind of Blue, just before we move on to talking about you.
Me? Nobody wants to know about me. Let's talk about music.
That first cymbal crash.
Oh, it's an orgasmic moment, if you can say that on a podcast.
You can, yes.
It's one of those moments in jazz history that I think Jimmy Cobb had no idea that he was going to lay on Manchild. He had no idea what he was doing. And in interviews, he said he thought it was a bit much. And I think somewhere I read that he thought Miles was going to turn around and go, hey, man, and they left it. And he was like, oh, I'm off. Okay, I'll just stay out the way.
Yeah.
But what a moment.
Because I think that the way they were recording back then was, everyone had to be very dynamic and they were all placed around one mic, I guess, or maybe 1 or 2.
1 or 2, around the room. But you have to be very, very careful. Yeah. Very careful.
And he said, he hit that crash and he came into it just a little bit hungry.
It's a bit hot.
Yeah.
It's a bit hot.
Hot is the word. And but the way, and he thought, oh man, I fucked it here. Like I've ruined it.
Absolutely.
But the way that thing crashes over the entire sound, but then sizzles away. The rivets are going. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so textural.
It is, and some people say that's the start of modern jazz, and some people say the start of the '60s was "du-du-du-du-du" on "She Loves You." That was the start.
Yeah, right.
That drum roll, that "du-du-du-du-du, love you." That was the moment, and it just burst out the speakers of excitement. And that is one of those moments as well. That done in a slightly different way, of course, different genre, but it was whereas Ringo kind of planned his, I guess. But that was kind of like a moment that people say I heard that cymbal and I knew and the air that it, like you said, the air that it's got around it as the sizzles die down and the trumpet rises out of it. It's does. Like it's hairs on the back of your neck no matter how many times you hear it.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Bill Evans earlier, whether we were recording that or not. I don't know if you were
we've
at that
got
point.
the whole chat.
Great, man. I mean, apart from that little bit where I went back and then I re-recorded again, so there might be a little bit that's slightly different, but not much. Yeah. Just where I was sound checking. Because like a fool, I didn't read what you said. Typical drummer. There's flamenco sketches, which is it flamenco sketches?
Sketches of Spain?
No, it's definitely flamenco sketches, which is on side 2. Side 2, God. Yeah, or it's track 6 or whatever, track 5. But it's like all blues. I think on side 2 there's only 2 tracks. I'm sure there is on the album. But anyway, it's the last one, the ballad, flamenco sketches. Bill Evans solo in that. His first 8 notes that he hits spanned over, maybe because it's a ballad, because it's slow. But those 8 bars, the 8 choice of notes they just slay me every time I hear it. He had that, as we said earlier. He could play loads of chords, be complicated. He could swing hard. He could play laid back. But when he lays down things like that, it's just kind of like no one can get near him for that. Jarrett is good. They're all geniuses. But if you go to it after this show, put on flamenco sketches, sit down with a glass of wine or milk, whatever your thing is, water, whatever, and listen to that track. And when it gets to his solo, they've all been playing beautifully and lyrically. And then it gets to him and the space just opens. And the space in what he plays... Actually, I'm not too fond of how his solo ends, funny enough. But the beginning, like 4 bars... Remember, it's a ballad, so that's a long time in a ballad. It's just, man, I'm telling you, the choice of... And I've talked to piano players, and they go, oh, man, I know. You could have done anything. And his choice, just genius, man, honestly. Breaks my heart every time.
Talk about genius. We will get on to talking about your life and drumming and everything, but I want to I want to say 2 more words to you. Watermelon Man.
Oh, Herbie Hancock, yeah?
Oh,
man.
So good.
I've got loads of vinyl here as well, Herbie Hancock. Again, he's one of those people that started in a certain way, and he could have spent his whole career just playing jazz or bebop or jazz and cool jazz, but he just kept evolving, and then in the end you see him with synthesizers and and stuff, and he does rocket and things, and it's just like, I love that growth. I've always, like I said with the Beatles, it's the growth. I love, whether it be good or bad, and David Bowie, the growth, Bob Dylan, Prince, all these people I love, and Miles Davis that I really care about, and Coltrane and people, and there's others that I always mention them, but there's others. They kept growing. Even if the fan said, I don't like this, they will say, well, I don't care. That's great. You like the old stuff. I'm going this way. Do you come with me or you stay back there? I don't care either way, because I've got your money, if that's what we're saying. I've got your money from those records. So if you're not going to buy the new ones, then a new generation can have those. And I just love that. And Herbie Hancock was always shooting forward. Very lucky to be with Miles. Not lucky because he wasn't good. I just mean, what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
He had his Blue Note career already, so it's kind of cemented to a certain degree. But that gig with Miles just kind of... And Tony Williams was in that same band, and Ron Carter, he was already a bit older. But and Wayne Shorter. So those 3 were just shoved up on the world stage. And like the Beatles, could they handle it? Yeah, they had the talent. Of course they could handle it. And his catalogue is just... It's so varied. I mean, I don't like all of it, but again, that's why I love it. Because it challenges me. It challenges me to listen. So if I want to go back to like Empyrean Isles or whatever it is, that jazz record with Cantilever Island on it or whatever, I can go back to that. And if I think Taking Off is the early version of Watermelon Man. I can go back to that, or I go to Headhunters, which is a genius record with the Watermelon Man. Most people know as the club dancey version or whatever, the chilled version.
Yeah.
I could go to that. I could go to Rocket for the 80s, which I know can be cheesy sometimes, but man, a jazz cat doing that in 1982 or 83, man, it's genius. It's just like, keep shooting forward, keep always looking forward. Don't look back, keep going. Because all his jazz chops are coming out, but they're on a Moog now. you know,
Yeah.
or a Prophet 5 or something, or as well as a Whirly and the obvious things you expect. And he's pushing forward. He's got Lynn drums. He's doing new shit. I love it, man. Exciting. Same with Miles. His last album was with a bloody bunch of rappers. And he did some tracks with Prince, you know. It's just like he wasn't going to play Kind of Blue for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, and again, there's some records in his mid-70s which are a bit hard to listen to because they kind of ramble and it's just all like and stuff going on. He's playing through a wah-wah pedal but again, I'm sat there, half of me's going, I wish it would stop soon. But half of me's going, this is Miles Davis playing like this, man. This is amazing. Yeah. Like, geez, this is like he's listening to Jimi Hendrix and Parliament, but he doesn't want to be poppy and 2-minute songs. He still wants to do his thing. But man, how expressive is that? Yeah. So he put on the Corner, or one of those records, On the Corner, and I totally dig it. It's like, this is rocking.
It's so random, and it's a bit like Bitches Brew, that one, a little bit. But the Beastie Boys really did some wild stuff with On the Corner.
On the Corner,
yeah.
And I'm so glad because that album would never disappear, but it's one of those ones that people don't talk about as often as Silent Way, like I mentioned earlier, or Bitches Brew. And another one around that time that's really good is Jack Johnson.
Right.
You should check that. It's always, all those albums have got musical directions or directions in music or whatever it is, Miles Davis plus the album title. Right. And I really like that. You could say it's pretentious, but no, it's not, because he was telling his audience, this ain't going to be Sketches of Spain. This ain't going to be Kind of Blue. This isn't going to be ESP or Nefertiti. This is going to be new shit that I'm laying on you, and you better get with it. And I love those stories of even before he went to the electric stuff, when he was out with Wayne Shorter and Tony Williams. And Tony Williams was like 17 or something. And Herbie Hancock was 20 or something. And they're doing all these tours, you know, European tours. And people used to walk out because he'd say, you know, or one main short to say, this is going to be so what, you know. And of course they're expecting but it was like 25 times as fast. And, you know, and it's like, the bass, Ron Carter didn't have time to play the phrase. It was do-doom, ba-do-ba-do-doom, ba-do-ba-do-ba-doom, ba-do-ba-do-doom, ba-ba-ba-do-ba-doom, ba-do-ba-do-do, ba-ba-do. And Miles would do, and they're off, you know, and it literally is. When I play to jazz students, I say, wait for it, they're off, and it's like, and it's so what? And apparently people in Europe walked out. People were like going, I'm not watching this, you know. We're talking theatres where people dress up with all their bow ties and suits, and we're just walking out. Right. And people were saying to him, what do you think? I don't care about these motherfuckers, man. This is my new shit. This is what I'm doing now. And man, you just got to respect that, because it's kind of like, that's growth, baby. And if you either go with that or you don't, and
artistry, isn't it?
It is. And I'm one of those people that, as I've already said, I'll go with that. I'm on that train. I'm willing to go. I like my favourite Beatle periods, and I like my favourite Prince periods and Miles Davis, but I like it all because it's just kind of, even if I don't rate it as highly as some of the other stuff, who's to say? Because the stuff I don't like, someone else loves. And I think that's what's so wonderful. But if you've just got the same kind of stuff all the time, it's like, yeah, it could be consistently brilliant, but what's that actually saying about anything? Like, I mean, I guess a lot to some people, so I shouldn't say that. But just to me, it doesn't talk to me as much. I like people to make mistakes, shoot high, and sometimes not quite get where they thought they wanted to go. But who cares? There's still some art in it anyway.
You want the moments where you go, you know what? I kind of see what they're reaching for here. Yeah, and they haven't quite got there. But I can see they've done enough. They've done a good enough job that I see the thought process here, and I appreciate that they tried it and it didn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. And if I was brave enough to do that with someone with a career, man, that's quite an undertaking, you know, because you know, one person we haven't spoken, we probably will do in a minute, but even if we don't, it doesn't matter. But that whole Purple Rain thing, which is again like the albatross on his back, which was a love-hate relationship for him. But you know, the next album after that, Around the World in a Day, is completely different. It's like psychedelic, Beatlesy, completely off the chart.
Right.
And Warner Brothers were like, "What's this?" Like. And he said, well, it's my next record. And he'd already sort of recorded it while he was doing Purple Rain anyway. It's like, this is my next step. And they're like, no, it's not. Give us Purple Rain 2. Go back in there. We want more Baby I'm a Star. We want more Darling Nikki. We want more When Doves Cry. He said, well, I've got that. Like, this is the album.
Yeah.
This is the album, guys. You're not getting anything else. And he said to them, I don't want any singles off it, which of course is a bit daft, but they said, well, there has to be one single off it. And so of course they chose Raspberry Beret, which became a hit, but he wasn't fussed. He said he was so like not fussed. He was like, well, he just done one of the biggest world tours of 1984 with Purple Rain, obviously, because it was massive. You know, #1 album, #1 film, won the Oscar for the soundtrack. He's flying high and he's 20 something, you know. So I guess he had a lot of balls at that point. Mirror matron. And he said, send the album out to all the to all the radio stations. Let them pick the single. Let them play whatever they want.
Right.
Which I think is kind of cool, man. I think that's a really rad way of doing it.
Yeah.
You know? And of course, Warner Brothers were like, you can't do that. No one's ever done that in history. Not even the Beatles did that. Like, we need a single. So eventually they all sat around the table and said, right, I think it's going to be this one, you know. But yeah, what a thing. And again, how easy would it have been for him to release stuff? Because now it's all coming out in the vault, you know, these 12 album things. I've got one of them here, the 1999 box set, which is massive on vinyl. He had all that stuff sitting there, and all they had to do was clean them up, and they were all going to be hits. But he was like, no, you can have that. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
And he did that all through his career. Parade, the next album was the same, and Sign of the Times. Of course, eventually, after Diamonds and Pearls, it kind of changes, and maybe some people think it blands out a little bit, and that's fine, I get that. But you can't, like Bowie or Prince, Beatles, you can't keep going forever.
Yeah.
You know, he went from 1980 to 1992 with all of his records, critics still citing as really good records. And then it changed, but it's going to, because people catch you up as well. Because like he said, people catch you up. You know, they eventually catch you up and say, right, I'm having that sound. I'm having that idea. I'm doing that. And eventually your sound becomes everyone's sound. And, but I just think that's a brave move, and I love that sort of.
It is very brave. I didn't get Prince for the longest time, and I used to remember like a little bit of backstory for people listening. You know, I first met you when I was studying at Bath College, probably 8 years ago.
That's right.
And
How many? How many years?
8, maybe.
Oh, really?
Maybe more.
No, maybe. Yeah.
And I remember you saying, I love Prince so much, blah, blah, blah. And I remember you posting pictures of you have like live bootlegs in your car and stuff.
Yeah.
And I would try it, and I'd be like, there's something in this that like Rob is seeing, and I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. Yeah. I tried. Obviously, Purple Rain is a great song, but like I tried. I was like, I don't get this. I don't fucking get this. And then
You're not the first.
And then I put on the Sign of the Times reissue box set.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to that live show that's at the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this is, I get this now. I get this. This is church.
Yeah. It's like a Revolver moment for me, because it was like, by 87, he still had a bit more trailblazing to go, but people were starting to catch him up. And he was also starting to listen to rap music, because that was starting to come out. And there's a story that he said to Susan Rogers, who was his chief engineer, he said to Susan, eventually people aren't going to want melodies. They're not going to want instrumentation. They're going to want a drum machine and a voice. He said, I've already done that with When Doves Cry. He said, but that's going to be the future, because I'm hearing this stuff out of Chicago, some house music and some rap stuff that's coming out. That's what's going to be happening. No chord changes, just the same thing all the way through. Nobody wants a chorus. Nobody wants a bridge. And he was right. And so when he wrote a song like Housequake, which is amazing on that record.
Oh, my God.
He was just picking up on Chicago. So a bit like the Beatles, he kind of pilfered something and made it his own, and made something that people go, that was the future. But actually, it was kind of being done already. But he was the star to dress it up and say, yeah, this is what it is. So again, he was in the crow's nest at that point. And you hear that song and you hear him, watch him play it live. I mean, again, we're not saying better or best, but I see that. And when people talk about Michael Jackson, I'm like, look, I love Michael, but check out Housequake on that tour. See how he's dancing, how he's just the whole thing to me is kind of like,
and it's the bits between the songs in that live album as well. Like I said, it's gospel. It's got this energy to it that
it has.
We're all there together as one, and you can hear the directions to his band as well.
Yeah.
One more time. let's go. You know, it's a bit James Brown, and just amazing.
The thing is, again, Prince is one of those ones I will talk to people like the Beatles about because I'm passionate, and I'll say, look, I know he never came up saying he didn't. If you read about him, even in his early, before he was a megastar, he was saying, I love James Brown, I love the Beatles, I love Joni Mitchell, I love George Clinton, you know, I love Sinatra, I love Fleetwood Mac, you know. So his music was very black, but also very white, very, you know, avant-garde, very poppy. He liked it all, which is what made him so cool, was the fact he had all those elements in his performance and in the way he was. And then eventually he found the sex thing, you know, that was a good way to sell. And he wasn't stupid, but at the same time, if you read about him, he had a very confusing upbringing. I guess we all do to a certain degree. But mixed messages about sex and religion. And that came out in his music, and eventually thought, right, I'm going to use that. Because the first two albums, it's quite Earth, Wind and Fiery, even though he's playing everything on it at 17. It's bloody genius, really. It's amazing. But then he gets to like Dirty Mind, and that's where he's wearing his suspenders and all that and high heels. And that's where he realised that, oh, I could do this sort of soul train thing, or I could use this other thing that's nagging away, which is this sexuality, Christianity thing. And of course he got on board with that, which actually was, helped him write more interesting songs and took him forward and made him and Madonna the most sort of like naughtiest artists of their generation. Yeah. Where Bruce Springsteen and Michael were sort of quite, you know, you could show your granny, but you couldn't really show your granny Madonna necessarily some of her stuff. Certainly not Prince stuff, because he was the first artist ever to get the label of obscene lyrics, wasn't he? He was the reason. And I'm not sure he's proud of that by the end of it. But when he was younger, I think he was proud of that sticker that was on all these records of like parental guidance, you know, because of Purple Rain and the masturbation thing in Darling Nikki, which is so like nothing compared to Sexy MF, which he did later, which is quite rude. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing, really. But I mean, as I say, something about him as he got older, which I'll just talk about, is just that when he got to musicology, he almost looked back on the old stuff, but he never regretted it, because people said, do you regret the sexual connotation in your music and where it's got to now with hoes and MFs and all that business? He said, well, I did the MF thing, but you know, I always tried to present women in a really positive way. Rather than just complete sexual objects, you know, there was songs coming from, and if you go back to Sign of the Times, which brings it back to that, If I Was Your Girlfriend, that song, no one's ever heard it, and people have said, oh, I've heard people talking about that, but listen to it again, because it's talking from the point of it being completely flipped around, of the guy saying, look, I want to be your girlfriend. I want to understand everything that gets you off. I want to understand what you're about. Yeah. You know, I want to do it, not as your guy, but as your girlfriend. I want to be that best friend that I can't be. And I mean, most guys, even the Stones, are talking about, you know, like being a guy's guy and all that. Yeah. And of course, country is singing about what that sings about. Bon Jovi was singing about in your Jeep and my girl and falling in love. And then you got this guy singing about, hey, I want to be your girlfriend. I want to imagine that. You know, what's that like? I want to make you up. I want to make up with you. You know, I mean, that is quite a head F for somebody to get their head around. And I was 17. I remember listening to it, and I just like the drum machine on it, and I like the riff. That I just thought it's a really quirky little riff, which it is. Yeah. Really sparky, but very barren. And then it goes back into this voice, which is slightly higher pitched, singing about this poor guy trying to get to understand his woman because he wants to love her so much. And I just think that's quite a thing. And then another song, he's being more like overtly sexual, but then he can flip it round. So when people say that about him, I don't get it, because he wrote too many songs from the woman's perspective. You know,
very androgynous.
Exactly.
In many ways.
And again, for people say, oh yeah, he was just doing that to sell it, because I said that earlier. I said, yeah, but like the Beatles or any of these things we talk about, he could live it. He knew enough about it. It wasn't like he was playing at it. It was one song. He kept coming back throughout his whole career, talking about these subject matters, you know. So it wasn't, I'm going to get you, baby, I'm going to give it to you, and it's going to be hard love and all that. It wasn't that. Yeah. It wasn't that. He could flip that round completely. He was never that blatant. And there's a certain genius. And of course, the fact that he could play all these instruments, and because it was Stevie Wonder, it was all these people, but he had something else. You know, he had the dancing thing that Stevie didn't have, and he had the instrumentation that James Brown never had. But he was always saying, I borrowed from all of them and I made it mine. And for me, I loved all those artists, and all of a sudden I saw this peak, and it was him.
It's convergence.
And of course, like you said, you've got to see. I'm not saying you had to see him because he's gone now. I hate when people say, "Oh, you should have seen him live." But if you catch some live performances, when people don't get it, listening to Spotify, I get that. Like you said, it's a hard one to get into. I never know what to play people, really.
Yeah.
I say watch some live stuff. If whether you're a musician or not, watch the live stuff from different periods. You'll see why people say he was one of the greatest. Yeah. Some people say he was of his generation. I would never be so bold, but there's enough information there to, he's going to be hard to beat. That's why his halftime show at the Super Bowl is so tough to beat, man. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily my favourite performance either, I've got to say, but it stood up over the test of time. One man and a band and a guitar, rather than 12. Though the weekend was brilliant, and I'm not knocking anyone. There was great performances, loads of dancers and the lights, I get it. But for me, man, if you could do it with your band and a guitar and a stage of your symbol sign, that's it, man. That's all you need. You know, it's just talent. It's just who you are.
And it rained hard. It rained hard,
man. And I love that thing.
Through it.
I love that thing he said, because they said, "You're going to go on." He thought about it for a bit. He said, "Yeah," and he said, "I'll tell you, I want to ask for one thing." And I thought, "Oh my God, he's going to pull out." He said, "Can you make it rain harder?" So eventually he thought, right, I'm going to have to do this. And of course he doesn't want to fall over, so he's being very careful. And of course he wasn't doing the splits by then anyway, but he's being very careful where he goes. And he would have to be, because if he fell over, people would remember that too.
Yeah.
But he does pull out. And I remember staying up until 3 a.m. to watch it when I lived in Bath. Then I went straight to bed because I don't understand American football. And I remember thinking, that's not a great performance. Oh, I wish he could have done this, like any fan does. He should have done that. But the fact that he was so brave to play other people's songs as well as his own. I mean, that Best of You version is great. I think it's fantastic. And going into Rolling Down the River, that song as well. Then back into 1999. It's just like genius. And he's got that much confidence to say, look, I know these people aren't here just to see me, right? So I'm going to throw some other Americanisms in here, some Jimi Hendrix along, watch how Bob Dylan, and it's just, looking back, I watch it when I've seen what's happened since. Amazing performances, and I've seen a lot of them, obviously, because I always want to see if they're any good. Yeah. But a lot of them rely on a lot of other things, not just the music and the band. There's a lot of other stuff, which I get. My God, you got people who don't even love you or like you watching you, and some people that don't even know you watching you on your TV screen and in the audience. Yeah. So it's bold. You're going to hate it no matter what. And he just come out with that. And again, respect, man. Respect for that. He didn't bother with the dancers and stuff. He just I'm going to do this. We're going to play. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
And that's where he won. When he was live, man, with a guitar, piano, drums, whatever he played, whatever he did, you had to be there. I know people that went to see those 21 night performances. Some people, I didn't really want to go, but my wife wanted to go. My friends dragged me and I got a ticket. And they come out saying, fucking hell, that was the best thing I've ever seen. He did a whole lot of love. And I'm like, man, you don't have to tell me. I used to come out of those gigs, man, so elated whenever I saw him. And I saw him like 20 odd times. And I just come out elated, whether he played drums or not, or whatever he did that night. You just felt lifted. It was kind of like, that's it. I've seen the light. That's the sort of musician I want to be. Yeah. Playing a bit of jazz, a bit of rock. And sorry, I'm going on a bit, but again, like in his heyday, being brave enough to play things like Take the A Train, Night in Tunisia, to a crowd. I'm not saying his crowd was silly, they weren't, but some people that just wanted the hits. He would go and play jazz tunes or Stratus by Billy Cobham, like a jazz like fusion tune. I mean, the confidence to lay that and then play Raspberry Beret afterwards, but to lay those tunes on, whether it be a stadium of 50,000 or a club of 5,000. Or whatever, he had the confidence to say, look, I've got my catalogue, you're going to get that. But look, I'm into this other stuff as well. And you just went with it. You just went. Because if you saw the set list, you might go, oh, I don't want to be around for that. Case of You, Joni Mitchell, oh, I don't want to be around for that. But it was all presented in such a way that it was just genius. You know, I know, as I say, I know people that hate the records but love the live stuff, and I totally get that, because I think we talked about that.
Yeah, I think once. The live stuff that I've heard definitely helps me then go back to the records and it be I just understood it a little more. The first Prince track, other than, of course, everyone knows Purple Rain, the first Prince track that I really loved, and this was some time before I invested, because I've bought the 1999 reissue, I've bought the Purple Rain reissue, I've bought the Sign of the Times reissue.
Oh, now, brilliant.
Because sometimes I feel like I have to spend a bit of money, and then that helps you to get there.
Invest.
Because you've literally invested, and so I want to like it then if I've bought it, and I find that helps. But it was the track Dear Mr. Man.
Oh,
The groove.
Yeah, baby. That's rare. That's the kind of rare cut, as they would say.
Yeah.
That's on Musicology, man. That's a great tune. That's a good tune. And that record was that was kind of his resurgence, though he'd always been making records. But yeah, he went back to Sony in 2004, and that's the last track on the album. Oh no, there's one more after that. But yeah, that's a great tune. And again, that's showing a different side of him. That's like almost like his Gil Scott-Heron or Marvin Gaye hat he puts on there for that sort of
social
tune.
Yeah, it's social leadership in a way.
Absolutely. And again, I love the fact that him and David Bowie and George Michael were pushing for their masters to be returned and all that. He was part of that. Some things he did before the others, some things he did with them and stuff. And I just think, he was he's a visionary that I think when more people, because so many people were caught up in the Madonna thing, which was great, the Jackson thing, which was great. And he sometimes got slightly put, because I grew up in that period, a bit like the Beatles with the dads saying they didn't like them. A lot of my rock friends were like, oh, he's, like this matters, but he's got to be gay. He wears those shoes. He's got a high voice. You know what people get like, it's the worst side of people really. And you think, well, okay, well, you should listen to this guitar solo because he's wearing heels and makeup and he's spinning around doing that stuff. But listen to that guitar solo. That's as tough as anything you're listening to.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, and he was kind of a hard one to sell. And in a way, I regret that he wasn't more kind of easier to digest, but that's kind of what made him cool.
Yeah.
It was almost cool. And I know he's a bit naff, but it was almost cool to like him. When you went to Moles in the 80s and stuff, and it was a members only club, Prince would be played a lot, other stuff too, but he was always on a lot. And he's like, this is kind of cool. And then you go down to Shemmy's or something, another nightclub, and it'd be all the pop stuff like Kylie and stuff. And you're like, oh, any Prince? Oh, not really. He's like, okay, fine. It was just weird. And there was that divide. And you could either be like a Blur or Oasis, Michael Jackson, Prince, and Beatles or Stones. You can do both. And I think one of the interesting things I remember a reviewer saying was, look, they're both great artists. You put Michael Jackson on in the daytime, but when you want to get down at night, you put on Prince.
Wow.
And I was kind of like, that's me. Because I love Michael. I love Off the Wall. I'll always stand by that album. I don't like a lot of the later stuff, the stuff after that. But Off the Wall, I'll always stand by. I think it's a great record. But he's right. You put Prince on to get down. Those grooves are a bit dirtier than Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. So that's kind of got a sexual connotation, but it's all very kind of pleasant. You could dance to it. You put on something like Get Off or Sexy Motherfucker and also, Scandal, But those grooves are deep set, man. He learned from those artists like James and he knew how to get those grooves down into your nether regions.
Talking of MJ, have you heard Tabloid Junkie?
I haven't.
Oh, right. Okay. That's one to check out. That's from History.
Is it? Okay.
It was one of the originals that was on History.
Okay.
Yeah, when I got that new sound system I was telling you about, I thought, well, what's really well-produced music that's going to sound really...
Yeah,
and I thought, I'll put a bit of MJ on, see how this, pops out. You mentioned Billy Cobham earlier.
Yeah.
I've got one of his albums. I think, is it called Magic?
Yeah. That's not a bad one, actually.
That's got some chops on it.
Yeah, man. I mean, the one to get is it's around here somewhere. Again, it's not a visual thing, is it? But I've got Spectrum, and that's the one with Stratus on it, and all the sort of Red Baron. They're the ones that most jazz fusion bands would cover. They're like the singles, if you like.
Yeah.
And of course, the Massive Attack tune, that do 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 Safe from Harm, that track. That's a loop from Stratus, So that's how he got extra sort of bunts from that. I should imagine they did quite well. But Spectrum's a great record, and Crosswinds is another one. I mean, there's not much of that output. Again, his 80s output, like all of those jazz guys, suddenly gets all synthy, and sometimes people turn off from that, from the Wurlitzers and the Fender Rhodes and that sort of more 70s cool jazz thing. Jazz fusion thing, but I kind of like it. I don't mind it. I don't mind hearing those Moogs going away and all that sort of stuff. It doesn't bother me, actually. I quite like it because I like synth music anyway. I love Kraftwerk and Gary Newman, and that's kind of where I started before the Beatles. Really, that was my first thing.
Yeah,
that was my go-to.
That latest Gary Newman stuff, My Name Is Ruin, is amazing.
It is amazing. He totally reinvented himself, from that sort of stupid thing that he did, and he admits it was stupid, in 1981, saying he was retiring after 3 years of mega stardom. and then it crashing his planes and all those poor things that happened to him that made him a bit of a joke for a while, which he admits. And he went into a decline, and it's really sad. And it was just through his own kind of like, I'm not good enough, like we all do. I'm not good enough. I'm going to pull out. So he did this thing of retiring, but never really meaning to retire. So he did these 2 gigs in Wembley Arena, like 3 nights or something, sold out. And he said, that's it, I'm done for a while. But what people didn't pick up on was he said, for a while, I'm going to come back, work on my songwriting, work on my voice a bit more, and I'll come back and I'll feel more. Because again, he was another one that, Our Friends Electric made it, and he was like 18 or 17 or something. He was really young, and he was nervous, and he had performance issues and all sorts. And there he is on top of the pops, and he's outselling Bowie, who's his idol. And all of a sudden, he's this thing, Thankfully, he made replicas, Pleasure Principle and Telecon, 3 massive albums. He was touring the world, and he was massive. People forget he was absolutely huge. But then, of course, he was reading the critics saying, "Oh, this guy's selling out. He's doing this and that. It's all synth stuff. It's not real music," which now is so daft when you think of what dance music became. Yeah. And he started to believe it. His voice isn't very good. A bit electronic. There's a bit of Bowie in there, maybe too much. And it kind of did his head in, so he decided to retire and work on it all. Such a shame. But then he came back in '94 with all this new kind of stuff, and he's become a legend for a whole new era, generation of kids, and music lovers. And I think that's great, because he deserves it, because he was definitely, he was outselling and outcooling all of the people that he loved at that time. Yeah. He somehow condensed everything that Bowie had done on Low and Heroes, which is my favourite Bowie period, that Berlin period, and all the other stuff like Human League and OMD, who were there before him. He somehow got all that stuff, plus the art house of Kraftwerk, and put it into 2 or 3 minute singles and just make it work. Yeah. And whether you like it or not, it just worked. And he managed to do it for 3 or 4 years, and just, that was it. He was a massive star.
Yeah. Just amazing.
And it's a shame that he had such a quick decline, because of the press and people hounding him. And I think later on the press were like, yeah, we were bastards to him, actually. We shouldn't have done it. Because actually, we really like him now. And he was actually quite good. He brought the stage show back when all the punk bands were like, nah, sod lights, we're coming out and doing it, which was great, of course. That had to happen. He said I was the first one to bring back the stage show. But everyone either loved it or you were knocking me for it. I didn't know whether I was coming or going. Yeah. I loved it as a kid. I was only 8 or 9. I never saw it, but I remember seeing it on TV thinking, it's the best thing I've ever seen. And his music was so futuristic, and I love that. And of course, through that, I did find Bowie and other things, which was just as well, so I could see the way the thread of the electro pop and krautrock and all that was going. And I got into it in Cannes and all that. But you've got to start somewhere. And Gary Newman was my in.
Cannes, he was my from poster Cologne.
Boy. Yeah. I mean, the Cannes stuff, man, it's all that stuff is like, when I talked to Susie, when I was working with Susie Sue from the Banshees, she was just like, man, we grew up on that. Lou Reed and that. Obviously, she liked the Beatles as well and stuff, but she was like, that was the stuff that really turned us on to like art house, what music could be, not just pop songs, but just something a bit different. And I love that. I think it's great. So I went out and bought all the Can albums and got completely into it, because I thought if Susie likes it and she's my boss, I better be checking it out to see what... because the drums are always really good in it. I can't think of the drummer's name now, which is really bad, isn't it? But my memory's not been great tonight, has it? But anyway.
I know. I think your recall ability is far from in question. Right, you've mentioned Susie Sue. I think now would be a good time we're going to put a pin in the music gush love chat.
Okay.
Music gush love chat. Matron. And okay, I'm going to read some names out to you. Peter Gabriel. Okay. Yeah. Andy Partridge, Goldfrapp, Simple Minds, formerly Johnny and the Self Abusers. Just going to throw that one out there.
That's right. You're right.
Miles Kane, Susie Sue, Lorena McKennitt, and how do you say it? Ines
Seiben.
That's the one. Ines Seiben. You are a professional drummer, clinician, session drummer. What else? What else would you like to add to your resume?
Oh man, just musician, all-time fun person,
curator of cymbals,
curator of groove,
writer for Riven Mag,
and modern drummer. I've done a few of those things, and
So tell me where that begins for you? Does it begin with Ringo and Steady Now?
Did you say Ringo? It started. It started with Top of the Pops. Classic Thursday night thing. Watching Blondie, The Police, The Stranglers, all those bands, and then a name that I mentioned earlier, Gary Newman, came on, and for some reason, I mean, the drums are in it, but they're very metronomic. They're like more drum machine like before he was using drum machines. So it wasn't that. It was just the look of him, the sound of those synths on Our Friends Electric, which still sound amazing now. The way She Loves You pops through the speakers, the way Our Friends Electric pops through the speakers is just as exciting as the day I heard it. And it's still as ballsy. And that was it. I was a Gary Newman fan. So I tried keyboards, I tried guitar, and we're talking Woolworth guitars. Right. We're not talking Fenders, right? We're talking Woolworth Bontempi keyboards, one finger job, which was kind of like what he was doing, But then my dad was a drummer. Right. And my mum was a lover of music. She was into her Carpenters, Beatles, Elvis, Beach Boys, pop side. My dad, and musicals. My dad was into jazz, rock, fusion. So I could have a Barry White record from Dad. I could have a Deep Purple record. I could have a Jose Feliciano record. I could have a Miles Davis, a Buddy Rich, a Beatles, Average White Band, Herbie Hancock. There was all that stuff. So between the two rooms, Mum in the kitchen with a radio and Dad in the room with a stereo. On a Sunday morning, I've told this story so many times, but I could stand in our hallway. On my left, I get the jazzy stuff. On my right, or the muso stuff. And on my right, I get the harmony stuff of my mum's radio. And both of it sank in. And as I said earlier, John Lennon was shot in 80. I went to school that day. All the teachers were crying. And I'm like, what's going on? What's happened? I don't know. In the assembly, they explain it, play some records. Go home that night. Help comes on the TV as a tribute. I go out and buy the Help album that weekend. I'm a Beatles fan.
That is mad that they hold an assembly to break it to the kids that John Lennon's dead. The teachers are crying. They play the music. The BBC wipes its scheduled program for the night. Yeah, and does tributes. That is the King is dead.
It was so weird because I've shared this story with other drummers of mine and they go, oh, I know what you're going to say. Teachers were crying. I'm like, yeah, did you have the assembly? Yeah, we had the assembly. And it's not just like one sort of, did that actually happen? A lot of people did this in a lot of schools because it was like, why are you all crying? Like, I don't know who this guy is. Like I say, I knew about the Monkees because they were on Swap Shop. I know they were from the 60s, but they're still being repeated. Yeah. So I was like, oh, I like this band, this zany band, having no idea they were based on the Beatles. I didn't know who the Beatles were. I probably heard them on the radio, but my mum's side of the kitchen, of the house, I had no idea. They didn't live apart, by the way, but they were just in, those were the rooms they were in. They all lived in the same house. But yeah, and it was one of those moments. And, then I fell in love with 60s music, Beatles mostly, but then I learnt about that. And then eventually, I thought, I want to play the drums. I love this. So Dad was a drummer, but he was about to sell his drum kit. I didn't know this, but I found some drumsticks and thought, oh, this is cool. I like this. I've seen this on TV. And he said, look, do you want to play the drums? Like, seriously? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I kind of, it's all right. I don't know. He said, well, decide, because I've got a double bass drum kit at that point. He was a jazz drummer, but when he retired, he said, I'm going to have a double bass drum kit, Premier kit, Beverly it was. I'm going to have a double bass drum kit, so I've got all the drums I want. I said, no, you're all right. So, but then, of course, a few weeks later, I was like, maybe it's months, no one can really remember. But He's like, Dad, I want to play drums. And apparently Mum said he wasn't very happy because he just got rid of this big fat kit. So he bought me just a practice pad, like the old fashioned wedged ones, which are for people that play traditional grips. So they're angled down like a door wedge, so you get that angle. Yeah. He said, you're going to start on that. I'm going to start you off and you're not going to have a kit. And I was like, oh, Dad, but people at school, no, if you're going to do it properly, you have the practice pad, you're going to learn to read the music, and we're going to do it properly. I was like, oh, all right. And then every now and again, I'll be playing along to a Gary Newman record upstairs. I say, Dad, can you come in? He'd be like, oh, I don't like this. And I'll say, what's he playing? He said, well, it's something like this. And he'd bang it on the floor and stuff, And I'd be okay. And then he'd come home, another rudiment book, son, check that out. Let's go through your 3-stroke rough, all your roughs. And they said, I'm going to buy you a bass drum pedal. I was like, oh, about bloody time. So he bought me a bass drum pedal. So we're talking like 6 months to 8 months. I've now got this pad, my music book that he's writing out for me, plus my bass drum pedal that I had on a living room chair put on its side, so the bit you sit on was facing me, and I play the beater on that. And the back of it was knocking on my leg, because obviously I had it and just literally pulled it forward, so it was down on the floor. So that was my basic drum kit, and then eventually, I think it was 81, he bought me a little Premier Jazz kit, a resonator, and there's a picture of me somewhere online. I've got my Gary Newman fan club tie and a black top, and it must have been 81 because it's the John Lennon collection, which came out in 81. I've put in my bass drum, so like on my bass drum, but the album on which I've still got on the bass in the bass drum, so on the bass drum skin in the between the tuning pegs. And that was it. And then it was playing at school in the wind band. I didn't really enjoy. And I actually found quite early on, even though I can read music, even obviously to this day, and I teach it and everything, but I never actually liked that formal side of it as much. There was just, and I remember the teacher saying, yes, you're very good and everything, but you have to. And I was like, yeah, no, I totally get it, but there was something about, and even to this day, when people ask me to do pit orchestra gigs or shows, I tend to back off. I get nervous. I don't like that. I don't know what it is, because I can do it. Like everyone says, you can do it. Like Mark Whitlam says, you can do it. Like, just do it. What are you talking about? You can read. Yeah. I just don't enjoy it. I just don't enjoy that experience. Yeah. I like being part of the creation of it. I don't like just being sat in there, drummer, music, go. I don't like that. It's not where I shine. People like Mark can do that, and he plays brilliantly, and he can read, like bloody fly shit on toilet paper. He could play anything. Right. He's a genius in many ways. And he can play the other stuff too. But my strength is the other stuff. I don't. Hence why I work with a lot of musicians and music that isn't kind of written out. It's kind of like, you come in and make my stuff happen for me as a drummer. Yeah. I want you to come and make this thing happen. Whether it be my old catalogue, like Susie and a lot of the artists have got back catalogue, obviously, or whether it's the new stuff, come in and play. I want your vibe on this, because I know you can do what you can do. Been well recommended. You've got a CV. Let's have you on it. I think you'd be the right person for the job. And that's where I come alive. And thankfully, I've made my career in that, rather than having to stay in a pit or in a, which is, as I said, nothing wrong with it. It's just not where I think not I'm best suited. Yeah. It's not my vibe. And I walk away with the money in my pocket, or it's being transferred, whatever. And I get in my car and I'm sort of like, I didn't want to do that. I've got the money, which we all need. Yeah. It was nice to meet some great musicians and play. Of course, that's a lovely thing. But actually, am I happy doing this? And I realised, as I say, really early, that wasn't my gig. Right. So I don't do it. So thankfully, it turned out that I could do my other side of this, creative playing, expressive playing, whatever, and I could make a career from that. And I'm just so thankful, and that's what I strived to do. And all the musicians I've talked about already, they all kind of, I was inspired by their way of keeping moving forward, learn the different styles. Again, Dad got me into jazz. Mum loved all that pop. So I had both of that, and I loved both equally as much. So I could sit down when I was a lot older, play a jazz fusion thing, odd time stuff. Yeah, I love and prog rock. Let's do that. I can do that. And then someone say, right, we're going to do We've Only Just Begun by the Carpenters. I say, yeah, I know exactly. I know the drum fill at the start. I know the dynamic. I'm happy doing both. And none of it to me is cheese. To me, there are no guilty pleasures. It's all part of the big picture for me. I don't want to have that, because to me, if I close off my love of the Carpenters or my love of whatever, then I'm closing off a whole lot of music and stuff I could add into my playing and bring to somebody else,
I've been meaning to pick up the Carpenters Gold, is it?
Yes.
Just to
collection,
just to listen, knowing that she's singing and drumming at the same time. And appreciate that. I don't feel like I necessarily need why do birds suddenly I'm not sure that's what I need in my life, but
I know what you're saying.
But I'm open to finding some gems in there for sure. Not that that's a bad song. It's a genius lyrics. The reason it's so iconic, but
it is. It's beautiful. But yeah, you're right. Not all of the output is, as stellar as what's going to be on the Gold collection. There's a lot of, middle of the road. And I know it's subjective, but for me, it's a lot of middle of the road treading water till you get to the next classic and you're like, whoa. So on one album, you might get a bit like the Police, really. Their albums are sketchy, but when you get to the good bits, they're great. Yeah. But then there's some bits like Canary in a Coal Mine. You think, really? Is that such a great song? But it kind of is, but you know what I'm saying? They're kind of patchy, but it's subjective. But I'm with you on that. I think getting a collection of the Carpenters is probably a good way to go. I've never been a fan of the Best Of vibe. It's a bit like Alan Partridge when they says, "Oh, Alan, what's your favourite Beatles record?" I'd have to say the best of the Beatles. It's kind of like that, you know. But with the Carpenters, yeah, I think probably a good double album gold collection of Carpenters material is probably all the good stuff in one place.
Sometimes that's what I do when I'm interested in a band. I want to know. I want an overview of the career, and if I like it from then, I'm diving in with the hyper focus.
And with both feet.
Yeah,
you go in both feet.
But sometimes you don't want to make that investment, and sometimes the greatest hits is enough.
Yeah,
like there's a guy I love called Ellis Paul, and he's a folky guy.
Right,
and he did a really nice. He did the soundtrack for Me, Myself, and Irene.
Maybe it's that I know from. Yeah, I just know the name.
There's one of the tracks on it. I can't remember which one it is. Sweet Mistakes or The World Ain't Slowing Down. Anyway, he's got a greatest hits, and it's great and it's fine. And I've tried his other albums, and I'm sure they're good. But there's, I'm just good with that essential collection. And sometimes I think about expanding off into it, but I don't know. Sometimes you just feel like, I've got this one, and I feel like this is as far as I'm going with this. Maybe that's a bad choice actually, because I quite like him. But
well, the nice thing about Spotify now is you can go and have a little delve, can't you? You can have a delve about the place, and if you like it, you can go down Rave in the Grave and buy the vinyl or whatever you do. Well, not now, but obviously, but in the pandemic. But I think it's a good thing. As much as I don't like streaming music, and that's a whole nother debate.
Go on, have a rant. Go on.
No, I don't want to. Because I thought about that today as well, and I thought, no. I mean, we've got enough problems in life, and it's already happened. It's done. It's no point crying over spilt milk, But I think the only thing that does get to me is just which kind of it started in a way, is just, and I had to watch The Masked Singer the other night for my little boy, which is fine. But I don't know, being in the industry and stuff, like we all are, we're all musicians, and no matter what end of it you're in, you're still in it. If you love music like that and you perform, it's just how kind of sometimes, and I know people go, off they go, but how it kind of belittles the whole creation of everything, And I get it, music for some people is literally just background, and that's fine, okay. Totally cool. But, if I say to people, what do you do? So I'm a mechanic, right? Okay. So I'm going to come and I'm going to watch you fix a car, and I'm going to say, oh, somebody else does it better than you. Oh, is that really what you do there? Oh, you're rubbish at that, And you say, what do you know? I would say, right. So what do you know about music? What right have you got to say? Now, I said it's subjective, but no, what I mean is for the people that really become armchair critics and think they know because of shows like, that singing show. I can't think which one it is.
X Factor and The Voice.
Yeah, thank you. See, I don't even watch them, but all of a sudden I've got people telling me what they think is good or bad about a singer. Again, why not? I get that, but it's just like, okay, well, I'm going to come to what you do, and I'm going to sit and watch you do something, and I'm going to do the same thing to you. How would you like it? And I've got, but you don't know what I do. You don't know what I do.
Yeah.
But because it's music, we can all say it's good or it's crap. And again, I'm not saying that's bad. But it's like a double-edged thing. What it's done is just made people sort of respect for music, is what I'm trying to get at. Is maybe not as much as when they had to buy it. Over the counter, actually part with hard cash rather than just click download for 99p for a single off of an album, all that kind of stuff. And it's an old argument, but I think it's valid. And I, as the older I get, I think it's true. It's kind of, it's made it harder for younger artists. Also, the internet, all right, has made it easier in other ways. But the thing is, you can have careers on the back of no label, none of this. But in a way, you don't really get on the back end of a London bus or on the side of a building unless you unfortunately play the game with the record company. They still hold the cards, All right, it's a lot easier for us now, and I'm not saying it was the right model of business then. It probably wasn't. There's a line in between that has to be met, and it never did. It went straight over to this other side, and I think now we're trying to get it back to a middle ground. If we don't want to go back to them holding everything, we don't want complete freedom, because we can't get to where we want to go completely with that. Freedom of music, yes, obviously, but we need you to help us. But don't govern us for the next 25 years knowing everything. There has to be a middle ground.
With your 360 deals and your 5-album deals or whatever it is, 8-album deals.
Yeah, there has to be some meeting of the two. And I don't know if it'll ever happen, because we're still just rambling on, and it's still But yeah, that's the one thing that grinds my gears.
There's no emotional investment with Spotify.
No, absolutely.
You know, like you said, you know, you're surrounded by records there. I'm also where I am, surrounded by records, and I think, well, you know, I've got Spotify, I have the world's biggest record collection on my phone, and it sounds great. Okay, it's not high res audio, but it sounds fucking good.
Yeah, it does.
What they've managed to do with a 320 MP3 is pretty good, to be honest.
Yes.
But why do I still buy these things? And you know, I've got CDs in there that I buy that show up sealed, and they're still sealed.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah. I got vinyl like that.
And I'm streaming it. So why am I buying it? Phil Collins doesn't need my money. You know. The Grateful Dead don't need my money. You know, but I buy it and I stick it in the collection, and then I stream it. And I think I buy it because, one, I've got an iPod, so I do put stuff on the iPod. So I will unwrap it and rip it in if it's not already in my iTunes. But
right,
I think it's because it's a part of you, isn't it? It becomes a part of it's itself. For me, part of my record collection is that it's like, if you come and see my record collection, that's like my heart is on my sleeve slightly there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I love going to people's houses, and I love when they say to me, "Don't look at that bit."
I used to love going to people's houses.
Well, yeah, actually, I should say I don't go to anyone's houses. I just look through people's windows. Now that's even more dodgy. But yeah, when you did, they'd be like, "Don't go to that end down there. That's the dusty end. Don't go down to that part of the record." I go, "No, that's the fun bit. I want to see what you've got down here." And I don't care what it is. You know, my one jazz album is, you know, the best jazz party album ever. I was like, well, I don't care. At least you've got a jazz record. All right, it's not, you know, I could sit here and say Get Kind of Blue or Take 5 or whatever, some albums you might just like straight off the bat, coffee table jazz albums that are still classics. But yeah, if you've got a best of, well, so what? You know, I don't mind that. I think it's great, you know, and you don't sort of get that when someone says, "Oh, that's all on my phone." You can't really, I don't want to look at your phone. Like, there's no fun in looking at your phone. That's a bit weird. Like, you know, I'm not going to get into that, you know. And yeah, that used to be a thing for me, was at parties. I think all musicians, if it was a bit like dull, go and look at their records, go look at their CDs, you know. And it just shows someone's personality, and I love that. And as I say, no guilty pleasures. I say to people, there's no guilty pleasure. I don't care what you've got on that rack over there, that's fine. You know, whatever I'm going to look at in your cupboard of music, I'm going to love it all. It's great, you know. It's about you. It says a lot about who you are.
One thing I can never understand is that some people, you ask them what they're into. So it might in my sort of 9 to 5. It's customer service. So I say, you know, if I notice they've been for a run, they got some headphones on, or they say I'm decorating, or I'm going to go clean, I will always say, "Oh, what are you listening to?" Or what's the soundtrack to your decorating? What's going on? Like, because it does lets you know kind of who they are and stuff, and sometimes their answers surprise you, and often I will give people, I'll jot something down and be like, "Yo, I think you'll really like this album." You know,
that's brilliant.
But sometimes you get the people that, and that is good, you get the people that are so insecure about it and so shy, they will not tell you, "Oh, it's so, I know you wouldn't like it."
Exactly.
You know, and it really annoys me, because it's like, I will listen to Blue featuring Elton John and love it. I love Take That. You know,
great songs.
Great pop songs. Let's not go on that tangent, but we could go on that tangent for 20 minutes, I think.
Absolutely. But any tangent.
And it's like, you know, just tell me. Come on, just tell me. What is it that you like? You know, it could be that you only listen to the Mr. Blobby single or whatever. I mean, like...
Yeah. Postman Pat, What makes it worse is when they know you're a musician. That puts their guard up even more.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to say, "That's crap. You're an idiot." I'd ever do that.
when I meet people at parties, you know, when we did, or wherever, and you're talking about stuff and you're shooting the breeze before they know what you've done, or if there's any gravitas to what you've done or anything, you know, because that changes things as well. You just say one thing, like, "Oh," you know, it's like, well, I'm stood in front of you talking to you. Like, why should I saying I've done Jonathan Ross or later with Jules Holland have any bearing on our conversation? Why? Yeah. Because celebrity, you know, people have this thing.
It does.
So I'm not going to talk to you about my music now. Or they come up to me afterwards and tap my arm and say, "You never told me you knew about music." I said, "Well, I'm just a musician." "Yeah, but I said to you I like that stuff. You must think I'm a right knobhead now. It's like, no, I don't. I love the fact that you told me that you love, like Blue or whatever, I love it. Why would I knock it? I'm not that musician. Some guys would be going, oh yeah, well, you need to listen to so-and-so. I'm not that musician, I never have been. And, even when I'm teaching, I try so hard not to patronise students about stuff. It's such a fine line, especially as you get older. It's so difficult, but I try really hard to be open about everything. Yes, personally, I know what I like and stuff, but I try and keep the gates wide open for influence. Like I said earlier about the drumming thing, you have to. I think as a musician, some don't. And that's their journey. Fine. I'm kind of not that person. I'm really open to it all. Whether I buy it is a different thing. I'm not saying I'm going to buy everything, and I'm not going to buy into everything. But if you say, you like The Masked Singer, like I said to my son the other night, great, let's watch it. Okay. I'm sat there going, I don't really like this, but hey, okay. If this is how music's being presented on a Saturday night, and people, this character Badger suddenly goes into Smells Like Teen Spirit, I was sat there going, no, Kurt Cobain. And I was like, well, no, I can't be that person tonight. I have to be a different person. But inside I was dying, and I was thinking, like, what is going on with this classic music and any music? Why are we doing this to it, cheapening it to this level? You know, but anyway, but we could go on about that for hours. But yeah, that's the thing I find confusing. But I never try and belittle somebody on it. I think that's just being a bad person. I think that's very cool. Laughing at people. You do that when you're a kid in the schoolyard, and you learn that that's not the way to behave when you're a bit older. Oh yeah, Man United are crap. Liverpool are crap. Gary Newman's rubbish. And all that. You do that as a kid, and it's just such a stupid thing. But it's a growing learning process. When you do that as a 40-year-old man or a 30-year-old man or 20-year-old human, I just think that's not the way you should behave. That's why we've got all these problems in the world. But anyway, whatever.
It doesn't endear you to anyone, does it?
Not really. It just shows this closed-mindedness. But let's not get into politics. But yeah, it's that kind of thing, and it's a shame.
So you get given your kit, and you get pretty good at it.
Yeah,
and you become a big student of it.
Well, I did, and then I went out gigging when that was a thing, and I went to music shops, and I put my card up in a music shop, and I went to drum shops and hung about, and got to eventually work in a music shop in Bath in Assembly Music, which was in Widcombe, and then they had a retail shop, but they also distributed out on the Windsor Bridge, which is like a 10-minute, 50-minute car ride from there, which is out by Sainsbury's, sort of out that way in Bath. That Windsor Bridge Trading Estate, they had a warehouse where they shipped all the Sonor drums for England. Right. They had the distribution for Sonor. Now, of course, we think it should be in Milton Keynes or London. It was in Bath, because Steve had imported Sonor drums from Germany since the 60s. When Ducks and Pinkers was still in Bath, they had a drum department, which they did later on as well, of course. But he ran the drum department. So they said eventually, do you want to bring these things in, be the distributor? So I had experience in the shop, stringing guitars and dealing with customers and selling some drums, but also dealing with the endorsers. So Chester Thompson would come down, and all these people would come to the warehouse, and I was an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid meeting all these people. I met Bob Zildjian. I remember Bob Zildjian came down, and Steve said, Bob wants to spend the afternoon with you sort of talking about cymbals. Because my role, Ken Dewar, who's a lovely guy still in the industry and still plays. We did a session at Rockfield just last year before lockdown happened again. He was the main warehouse man, and I was the next one down. And then there was a sort of YTS guy under me. We used to have a ball out there working, shipping the stuff around and going to London, dropping gear off and stuff for reviewing. And also, what was I saying? Yeah, so this one time he said, right, Rob, Bob Zildjian's coming to town and he wants to take you to the warehouse and he wants to talk to you. We had a cymbal vault. Big door on it, go in, racks of cymbals, all Sabian, which was Bob Zildjian's thing, because Bob Zildjian and the other Zildjian brother, I can't think of his name now, split. So Zildjian went one way and he made Sabian. And it's a bit of a bad split. Anyway, so he was like, Rob, I'm going to show you how to pick a cymbal, man. And what have you been saying to the cats when they come in and all that? And anyway, I spent the afternoon with him at 18, and I'm in a room with Bob Zildjian. Like, it's like, what? Yeah. And he's saying, okay, so what do you say when a guy wants a certain sound? And thankfully I wasn't too far off the back, because Ken was a great teacher, so was Steve, and I'd learned from my dad certain things. But then I'm in there with Bob Zildjian, like the closest thing to cymbal god, the closest thing to Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, all these people that were, as well as the younger guys as well, but those were like, my God, this guy's been in the same room. This is
He's the insane. Old guard.
Yeah, it is. It's like the real old school. This is it. And that experience, and I've never forgotten it. And I've passed that on to other people as well. So I'm dealing with that, meeting Chester Thompson and all these sort of guys. Go into a Phil Collins rehearsal, though I didn't meet Phil Collins, with a sonal kit for Chester Thompson, Jack DeJohnette, all these drummers. And I'm going up there as this spotty little kid with Ken to deliver the gear, and it was incredible going to the trade shows. And what an experience. And all the time, I'm still gigging at night at Bath, in Bath at the Bell or Mole's Club, or the Hat and Feather. That was a bit of a dodgy place, but that's gone now. It's a wine bar or steak place. So all these gigs, and in Bristol, and I was playing jazz, I was playing indie sort of, I say indie, sort of REM type stuff at the time.
Yeah,
with the
college
band,
rock.
the Deep Six, doing that. And I was doing goth rock as well with a band called the Rose Garden from Chippenham, where we'd wear these big long Macs and cover ourselves in talcum powder, man, before we went on stage. So we looked like we just stepped out the crypt, like Fields of the Nephilim. They were one of our favourite bands, and The Cure and The Cult. We were into all that. Yeah. I was playing the Love album by the Cult all the time, and Head on the Door by The Cure was another one. I still love those records now. And Susie actually back then, but not as much. And I ended up working with it. And then just working at local studios, and just the name went round. Rob Bryan's all right. He does this, he does that. And the jazz gigs brought in the money, like not much, but maybe 30, 40 quid. They're not much different now. But, I was earning that sort of money. But then I was working with the indie group, making no money. Yeah. And we made an EP and had a few things released, playing around London, but making no money. And then the lead singer, Andy West, who ended up teaching music songwriting at Bath by Uni, and now he's up in Leeds, I think, was friends with Hugh Cornwell from the Stranglers. And Hugh had just left the Stranglers in 1991, and he wanted to do something different. So he got together with Andy. They were drinking pals at the Swan, I think it was, by the golf course. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say that, but anyway. And then Roger Cook, who was a country singer, songwriter, in a band called the Blue Mink. And they did I'd Like to Teach the World to Sing in Perfect Harmony in the 60s, which became a Coke advert through the 70s, and he made an absolute fortune. But he's written lots of tunes. He's a Nashville writer. So we had this band called CCW, Cornwall, Cook and West, and the album is up there on the wall. And Herbie Flowers was on bass, and I'm a spotty little kid, and I'm coming in and I'm playing drums on a few of the tracks. And that ended up being a live gig, and from there Hugh knew Coty Mundy, who had just left Kid Kroll and the Coconuts, so I got to tour with Coty. And Coty isn't the main singer. That's Angus Darnell, I think his name is. He's got the hat on. He's like the kid. Coty's the guy at the side doing all the sort of dancing and playing congas and all the stuff. He's still got a zoot suit on, but he's the other fella playing vibes and stuff. But he was kind of the brains of the operation. So I worked with Coty, and I learnt a lot. He knew Prince. He knew all these people. I was just like, fucking hell, this is amazing. And on his stage show, he used to do a song called Boxed Out, right? Which is like a real sort of deep kind of groove thing. And he knew I loved Prince, and he had this whole theatric thing where after the song, through the song, he'd put on his shorts, and he'd put on his gloves, and he has the towel, and so we play this like dung 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 dung, and he's like, I'm boxed out, and he'd go into the audience, I'm coming to get you, and he'd jump off the stage, right, and he'd go out, and he'd start sparring with the audience, and he'd have all these things, just like James Brown and Prince, where he would turn around and make a signal, and we'd have to be like da 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 da. And then we'd all have to freeze. Again, I was so into Prince doing all that. So I was totally down for this. So we was waiting, and he'd just stand there and he'd be like, boom. And when his fist came down with his glove, he'd have to come back in. And there's other moves as well. There'd be like some stops and the crotchet triplets. Da ga da ga ga da ga. And if he was like a certain one, he'd have to go again. Da ga da 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 da. Da ga da. I mean, he'd rehearsing this stuff. He'd be like, no, I didn't do the move. And I was, man, it was all about the move. But he taught me a lot about the theatrics. I was already in because of the Prince James Brown thing completely anyway. But, man, that was a good thing. And then from there, the guitarist in that band was just joined a 4AD band from the sort of late 70s, early 80s called Modern English. And I just posted a thing on Facebook today of me playing with them in American TV. So in 1996, I did the album with them and toured America, which was kind of a whirlwind of good and bad. But that was brilliant. We did that. And then from there, I took a little bit of time out. But then the Peter Gabriel session came up, which was only a session, but it was absolutely amazing. And then from doing that, something else came up. And
Wait. Peter Gabriel, back up.
I know. I mean,
Tell me about this.
I wish I could say it was a tour. I wish I could say it was the whole album. I could say it was a TV thing. I'm at home, right, in Corsham on a Sunday afternoon. Get a phone call from a friend of mine. I think it was Matt Sibley, or was it the bass player? I can't remember. One of the jazzers, right? Anyway, so I get this call, and I swear to God, they never said anything. They said, "Are you free tomorrow?" I said, "Yeah, I'm free tomorrow. We got a session at Real World." I went, "Shit, well, yeah, great, man, great." He said, "Yeah, can you do it?" I said, "Well, I think I had some teaching or something." I said, "But I'll say that I'm sick or something."
Yeah.
I mean, we're about 30 years on, so anybody listen to this, sorry. You didn't get your lesson that day. Sorry.
Peter Gabriel was calling.
Yeah, Peter Gabriel was calling. If you want to sack me, well, that's fine now, it's fine. From whichever school in Frome I was teaching at the time, Just drum teaching, not full class teaching. And I said, yeah, I'll be there. So I had a beaten up old Escort, which was gold, which was
a car.
It was blue.
Okay.
Sorry, it was blue. It was an X's that was gold. Right. It was blue. And it was always breaking down on me. Anyway, I got the drums in the back, my little Sonal jazz kicks. I was a Sonal guy at that time. Right. I drove down to Real World. I'd only been there once before, I think. Bit nervous. I've been there delivering Sonal drums with Ken from Sonal. Right. But anyway, I went up and I saw the sign that says office. I went in and I went, "Hi, I'm here for the session today." And they said, "Oh, right, okay. Where are you parked?" And I said, "Well, I don't even really know. It's weird." I said, "It's with my friends who were a jazz quartet." And she said, "Oh, that's with Peter." But I didn't think anything of it. And I went, "Great, cool." She said, "Well, where are you parked?" I said, "Well, I said, "Okay, well, if you want to get a coffee, we'll get someone to take the drums in." And I was like, "Take the drums in? I do that? Like, what? Like, I don't." She said, "Well, just grab a few, but someone if you go and have a coffee, and I'll show you where we're going. Going up around the back to Peter's writing room. So we go past the kitchen and we go up past the
and that's that
feature.
little summer house spot, isn't it?
That's right. It's out the back. Yeah,
I've been in there.
Oh, what a room, right?
And it's it was there was master tapes from New York's recording studios. What's that famous one in the Record Plant?
The Record Plant.
So, with Robert Fripp's name on it, producing and stuff. It was just this. It was almost like a little museum of his.
And it was supposed to be his little haven, wasn't it, of writing in his little space.
It's really, really amazing.
Isn't it? It's like a wonderland in there. It's just slightly, it's close to the studio, but just far enough away that it just feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. That's
the studio that Beyonce used, I think, when she
was
there. Ooh. And what was his bass player's name? The bold chap.
Oh yeah, Tony Levin.
Tony Levin's one of his upright basses was just sort of like sat in the corner that he'd used on a really
like it would
tour.
Be.
Yeah, it was just there. It was really like a moment of like, wow, this is great.
Well, it was that room, man, and I was setting my Sonal kit up, and I hadn't seen him in the limelight for a while, and he'd started to grow the beard and was a bit larger than normal. He's enjoying life, and he came in. He had this long, sort of white, sort of Afghani type, well, just like a robe thing on, like summer thing, with sandals. Like a Jesus robe, you could say, or something. Don't want to say that, but it's that kind of. And he walked in, and he was, and I looked up, and of course he's a hero of mine. I mean, I've talked about some other people, but Peter Gabriel is one of those names that I loved his music from a kid. Like 16 years old, I knew Sledgehammer. I knew a bit of early Genesis from my friends who were kind of nerdy proggers like me, and I loved it. And I just loved every album, and I just thought it was exciting. The drums were great, the drum machine program was great, the instrumentation, everything. I loved it. His voice. Then the next minute I'm looking up and he's there, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Peter." I said, "Yeah." I felt like I said, "I know," but I was like, "Oh yeah, nice to meet you." So what's your name? I said, "Yeah, I'm Rob," and he said, "Nice drums. Sonal make nice drums." He said, "We've got a few here. Manu's used them a few times, even though he's a Yamaha guy, but we've got a few." I said, "I know. We delivered them here years ago." We went. He looked confused. I said, "Well, I used to work for Sonal back in the day, and we delivered here." And I said, "You came into the shop and bought." In Assembly Music, I bought a kit for your son once, And he was, oh, blimey. I said, yeah. I said, I just remember these things, He said, oh, great, well, great to have you. And he sort of went in, and I thought, wow, I've met the owner of the studio. This is great. And he was talking to everyone, and I still hadn't got it, right? So, of course, he then is stood next in the main control room with a micro, or slightly off in a booth. I can't quite remember. I'd be lying. I knew I was behind the screen anyway. Yeah. And he was putting headphones on. And he was talking, and I had mine on, and I was like, what the fuck? What's going on? And he's singing in my headphones. And I'm like, what? And the bass player sort of came and said, didn't I tell you? And I said, no one told me. He said, yeah, he wants to do some jazz stuff. And I was like, what? This is insane. And he was like, yeah, it'll be fine. And we're doing I can't remember what standards now. One of the band members possibly has some recording of it, but I don't think he has. But I wish I had something of it, a memento, though it would be naughty to have it, but I would love to have a memento just for that. I would never do anything with it, and I'm sure it has been bootlegged, probably, I don't know, which is naughty, of course, I'm wrong, but anyway, we're playing these jazz tunes, and I'm closing my eyes, and I'm playing my ride, and I could be at the Bell, I could be at the Farmhouse, I could be at the Bebop Club in Bristol, I could be anywhere. Then all of a sudden, Peter Gabriel's voice is singing this standard in my headphones, and I'm looking out, and he's there singing into the microphone, and he's finishing a track, and he's sort of going, "Right, guys, what do you think? This isn't my usual thing. How's it sounding?" And I'm thinking, he said, "Rob, what do you?" I don't know what to say. Yeah, it's rubbish, Pete. Yeah, you're rubbish. I said, I said, it sounds great to me. And the band, then one of the band members slightly over goes, yeah, I think maybe, if you don't mind me saying, you could put some inflections on some of these words. He's like, no, I'm up for that. Because as I say, it's not my thing. So I love Sinatra and stuff, but I don't know this genre to sing. And he's willing to take, and he's like, he said to me, so how am I on the beat? Is it good? And I'm like, it feels good to me. And I said, the way you're just gliding over it anyway is just great. And of course, that's before all these stars started to do these jazz albums, Right. And of course, he didn't want that. It was actually for an event. I think there was a reason he was doing it.
Right.
It might have been for his parents' anniversary or something. I can't remember. It was a lovely sentimental reason.
Right.
I think somebody said that one of them appeared on a B-side or something. Oh, I don't know. Right. But I've never seen it. But yeah, and it's wonderful. I remember, my other memory is going into the control room. And I can't remember the guy's name, who's his engineer. Why can't I remember his name? I've been a bit bad with names. You said I was good at recall. I am, but I can't remember some names sometimes. But I'm stood at the back. The band are around, and I'm stood next to him, or he's actually on my right. And I'm also looking at some CDs, and he had a few Prince ones as well. And I knew he was a Prince fan, and I knew he'd been to see quite a few of the gigs and stuff. And I'm sort of looking at that, thinking, right, I'm in this hut, whatever they call it. I'm in there. I'm listening to myself at Real World. I'm listening to the band, all my mates, jazzers, and I'm stood next to Peter Gabriel. And then we start doing this sort of doo-bop dancing with like this, both of us at the back like this, to the tune that we're listening back to. And it's just like, oh my God, I'm doing this with Peter Gabriel. This is the maddest thing. And we break for lunch, and he instead of going down to the kitchen and like you normally do and say, this is the choices, what do you want? And you sit in the lovely, breakfast room, the dining room. He brought it up. He brought it up on trays, what people wanted. He himself, he didn't sort of go, oh, Minion, go and get me, their food. Yeah. He did it. And then at the end of the day, he paid us cash in envelopes, it was just kind of really... It was bizarre because most gigs are like, give us your details and you've done that already. It's all signed up, that'll be forwarded in a couple of weeks. Great, that's kind of what happens. You disclaimers, you won't come back for any more money. That's business. Yeah. But and I think we signed things, but it was just such a different experience. And people say don't meet your heroes and stuff, but he was... clearly you can see I'm still elated now. And I got home and about 9 o'clock at night, and I was ringing everybody, and I got really drunk, and I was ringing everybody, annoying them, all my friends. Guess who I've worked with today? Like, oh, what? And I was like, Peter Gabriel, you won't believe it. And I still feel excited. I just wish that Manny wasn't such a good drummer, and Steve Gadd and all these other guys that play on his records, because give everyone else a chance. I'd love to work with him again on something that gets officially released. But I guess in a way, the fact that my story is so personal to me and that no one knows the material makes it even more special in a way, because no one can go to a CD and go, oh, I know that track. Yeah. It's like I did something that has never been, may have been bootlegged. I don't know. But I certainly haven't never heard it. But it makes it even, maybe that's more special. I just thought that maybe that it's something that only we shared at that time for that one day. It may have been two. I think it was one day.
And it might be something that he actually remembers because it was so unique for him.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be sessions he isn't going to remember.
Yeah. And I think
he might remember that one.
And I know did that Blood choir thing, or whatever it was called, the Blood Orchestra or whatever, which was amazing with the strings.
I just got that New Blood. I think
New Blood. That's it.
With the hypodermic needle on the front.
That's
that
it.
thing. There's some darkness in that.
Lots of darkness.
And his production is always so sublime.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think he is spoken about in the ways that he should be, but I think en masse people like Purple Rain, people say Sledgehammer, and there's so much more to the material than that, but that was an amazing experience. And of course, once you've done something like that leads you on to all the rest of the stuff that started to happen. So yeah, it was kind of a thread from there to, like that connection to Simple Minds. And then that connection went to Miles Kane, and they were recordings that come out, thankfully. And then Miles Kane working with him was the same.
Which Miles Kane were you on? Did you play on Inhaler?
There was it was 2 tracks. They were the ones he wrote with Andy Partridge, which is how I ended up working with Andy, bizarrely enough.
From XTC.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what these tracks were called. They were written by him and Andy. No, one was written by him and Paul Weller. I can't remember. It's on one of his solo albums. That doesn't really help, does it? There's loads of them. Yeah. They're on one of his records.
The only Miles Kane song I know is Inhaler, which I thought was a great song.
It's not that. Anyway, but it's 2 songs. I only did 2 with him.
Right.
And then, yes, I was like, who are you writing with? He said Andy Partridge. And I know Andy had mentioned my playing, because Andy's a massive lover, because XTC, I mean, I love them too. I mean...
Yeah.
If you like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and stuff, you're going to like XTC, because that's where they're from.
I only know the bloody Nigel song.
Oh, right. Man,
which I do love, but I'm sure... I know that there's a real cult following for that stuff, and that Nigel song was almost like a tongue-in-cheek piss take.
But it is a great song.
It is.
It is. The drum groove in itself is an amazing little piece of drum pop, like genius. And... and there is a story on that as well. But and he'd heard of me and wanted to work with me, and I had no idea that he loved jazz as heavily as I did. He's really into his favourite jazz fusion album is a really heavy one called Emergency by Tony Williams Lifetime.
Right.
Which is, I can't remember if it's Jack Bruce on bass, Tony Williams and Larry Goldings on... Oh, no, it's John McLaughlin on guitar. That was later with Jack Bruce. But anyway, it's a really heavy album that's
Jack
very...
Bruce from Cream.
Heavy listening, yeah.
Right.
He was in and he did a few albums with Tony Williams later. But no, I think it's John McLaughlin on guitar, Larry Goldings on Hammond, and Tony Williams. And it's from like 1969 or 70, and it's really heavy. I mean, it's heavy in volume, it's heavy in demanding your attention.
Right.
It's one of those albums that when you buy it, you go, I'll leave that for a while.
Right, yeah.
Because I've had a few albums in my life like that. One of them was Spectrum.
Yeah.
Billy Cobham.
Yeah.
One of them was Love Supreme.
That is...
by John Coltrane.
I come back to that album periodically because... and this is something that I actually take from you via Clive Stocker. Clive once said that when he was doing his book, he asked you, how do you get into something? How do you perform something and do a job for someone if you don't necessarily really love what they're doing?
Yeah.
And he said that you said something that stuck with him is that you go, you listen and you listen and you listen and you listen and listen until you love it. Until you find redeeming features in it. And
Absolutely.
I've remembered that for years via Clive.
Wow, that's great.
And that's what got me into jazz, because I was like, I need to just keep diving in here and just keep going, and I don't get it, and I don't get it, and I don't get it. And then one day I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get this.
Yeah.
And so thank you very much for that. But yeah, but Love Supreme is one that is my ongoing...
Keep with it. Keep with it. Because... I'm a spiritual person. I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person, I like to think. And certain records have, and that's one of those records that has that. And then there was Emergency by Tony Williams that I was just like, no. And I was happy to read that Vinnie Colaiuta said the same thing. I was like, oh, so he is a genius. So I'm really glad that he feels the same. But he loved it. Andy loved it. So we met one time, and he's quite a, not a recluse, but he doesn't like to be out in the limelight, Andy. He likes to do his own thing, and and I totally respect that. And he likes his space and don't get into it. And I don't want to talk about XTC and all that. But anyway, we did a session together, and it was for an album that I can't remember. It was him and it was him and Spoken Word, basically. I can't think who the actor was, but it was a really cool kind of arty house album. And we always threatened to work with each other more. And we did a few sessions, but they never used anything. Then they put drum machine on it instead of a live drums and stuff because they wanted a different vibe and all that. And it was always like, this isn't going to happen. It was almost like, oh no. And then Colin Moulding, the bass player, came into it through another Swindon connection. And of course, they're supposed to not get on because of various monetary things from the band and whatever. So I start doing sessions with Colin, which he's paying me for, and it's for an EP or whatever. And then it's almost like sleeping with somebody else's wife. Then at the same time, Andy said, right, we're going to do a session. I'm going to get you in. We're going to go to a practice room. We're going to do what I'm doing now with my audio, leave it up and running, record everything, and make it into a conceptual record, a bit like Mars used to, and splice it together. I was like, man, I love the shit out of that idea. That's brilliant. Yeah. And it happened to be his birthday. He turned up with a case of very fine red wine. Right. About 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we've been playing for 2 hours, and just literally the tape would be running with, the computer would be running with just us talking. Yeah. And he would go, right, 5/8. Rob, give me a 5/8. And I'd go, okay, 1, 2, 3. What tempo? So it doesn't matter. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And I'd make it pretty generic. And then he'd say, right, make it less generic. I don't want to hear the 5. And I was like, oh Christ, okay, right. And then one time he came over, he grabbed some sticks out of my stick bag and started playing my cymbal stands. And he was like, are you rolling? And he's like, I'm recording everything. And he started playing my kit and the rims and stuff, going around my kit. And then, he was looking to people because the idea was like respond. It's like art house. I loved it. Right. So the keyboard player also had some sort of Moogs or Moog, however you want to say it, Moogs, and started playing around. The guitarist had some effects, and then we had loopers, so the guitarist would say something to the microphone, and it would start swirling around, and it just became this thing. And I've got that somewhere, I think, or at least I've heard it. I don't think I've got it anymore, but I'd heard it. And if we could have made that into something, that would have been amazing. And just watching him act like a 18-year-old kid, so excited about making music with people on a wavelength that he didn't have to worry about Nigel, or he didn't have to worry about, another nice melodic change that's McCartney-esque or whatever. He could just do what he wanted in this sort of vein and sphere of music. It was just so inspiring. And we drank those bottles of wine, and I had to get my girlfriend at the time to drive up from Chippenham to where we were rehearsing outside of Swindon to pick us up, and I had to go back the next day to pick my car up. And it was just phenomenal. But of course I had to break the news that I was working with Colin as well. So it was we were taking the gear out. We were all very, very drunk. And bless him, he must have been drunk because he was helping us take gear out. And he said something like, I said something like, Andy, I've got something to say, man. I've really loved today, and I don't want to break the vibe, and in a way, it's like, why are you saying this? But I thought it's better me than him finding out and saying, why didn't you tell me? Anyway, so I said, I'm doing a session with Colin. And he went, what, Moulding? And I went, yeah. And he went, oh, right. And I thought, oh, that's all right then. And then he started this tirade. He was like, Colin Moulding, man, don't mention that name to me. I could tell you some stories about us and money. And oh God, it's like, And then I went back to Colin and on a session. I was like, Colin, I said that I was working with you. He said, oh, Andy, yeah. What did he have to say? I said, oh, nothing really. Everything was fine. He said nothing. It was fine. But then they started to talk to each other, and there was some sort of talk of a reunion. And then Terry Chambers, the original drummer.
Is this where you say you brokered that and you're responsible for the XTC reunion?
Oh, I wish I could say... No, actually, I don't wish I could say that because I'd love to have been there. But Terry Chambers came back, the original drummer from Australia, because he buggered off when they stopped touring back in the day. And they used Dave Mattox and other great studio drummers for the rest of their time. Because like Talk, they didn't tour anymore because of various things, and they just made great records instead. Colin said, look, sorry, I've paid you for the sessions, but I'm going to put Terry on it because he's back and he's our original drummer. Do you mind? I was like, no, it is what it is. You can't argue with that, because I've done albums where I've replaced Simon Phillips's drums, not because he's not a good drummer, just because they didn't suit the song. Right. And I talked to someone the other day. I know, Simon Phillips, right? It's like, what? Because someone told me that. It was when I was working with Michel Polnareff, and he said, we've had to replace some of the tracks because they just didn't sit right. And, of course, that's not saying that he's 10 times the drummer I am. Of course he is.
Simon Phillips is a legend.
Yeah. And, of course, when people say that, they're not saying he's rubbish. They're saying his drums didn't suit this track, but yours will. So I can't go around going, oh, I'm better than... Because that's rubbish. but it's what you do in the industry. You say, no, that's fine. And then somebody rang me the other day and said, Rob, we've replaced two of your drum tracks with... they're brothers. I can't think of his name. He's a producer as well. But I think he was naming him. With so-and-so, he was in the studio. And is that cool? Of course it's cool. What can you say?
Yeah. Were you paid?
Yeah, I was paid, and it's all done.
There you go, then.
And it's fine, it's okay. It's what is musicians have respect for each other, and some people have got the name, and you can't argue with that, and they're bloody good players too. So what are you going to do? So and he was cool with it, and I said, no, I'm cool with it, whatever. And then it didn't quite happen, but Terry Chambers and Colin went out on their own and got some Swindon musicians, friends of mine actually. Gary Bamford, a keyboard player and guitarist, joined, and they did a few gigs in Swindon that were sold out, of course, a few secret gigs and a few big gigs at the Wyvern or somewhere, and then it all disbanded again, which is a shame because it'd been nice. But Andy was never going to do it, but maybe he was, but I'd like to work with him again. And he was being interviewed a little while ago, maybe about 2 years ago, and someone tweeted it to me and said that the interviewer said, would you like to, what musicians would you like to work with, and he mentioned my name. He said, Rob Bryan's a good drummer. And he said something like, and I don't do enough with him, or something like that. And it was tweeted, and I just thought, yes. But that's as far as it went, And
right.
the last concept was we were going to make a trio album of that kind of performance with Charlie Jones on bass from Goldfrapp and stuff, which is how I got the Goldfrapp album thing. And him, me on drums, obviously, doing like nursery rhymes, but jazz fusion nursery rhymes, like spoken word with all this art house. I mean, I've got a real soft spot for free jazz and free expression because we've all done so much in the box. You just got to look at the records I've made with people to see I could play in the box. But to be able to play out would be lovely on an official release would be so cool, just to show the other side of... him as well, more importantly, that he's got this whole other thing going on. He can write the 2-minute perfect melodic pop song, yes he can, but he can also do this weird jazz free form stuff, which I think is amazing. I think that's incredible.
Tell me about Susie Sue, tell me about Jules Holland and Jonathan Ross, and tell me about that whole, because that's when you arrived, isn't it?
That's when I arrived. Because all of that was kind of building up to something. And Charlie Jones, the bass player I just mentioned in Goldfrapp, who's a good friend of mine for years, and he asked me up to his house one day, and he sat me in. He's had a great career, so he's got a lovely house, he's got a lovely stereo system, and it's just a great place, and he's a great guy and a great vibe. So he sits me in this chair, a bit like the Maxell advert, with the guy's hair.
Oh yeah, I love that picture.
It was just like that, man. And he said, I'm going to play something, and this sounds like a romantic story. It's true though, or pop romance. I'm going to play something for you. I want you to listen to it. You tell me who it is, if you like it, and we should talk after that. So I'm sat there thinking, bloody hell, okay. So he presses play, and I hear this song, and I can hear elements of Goldfrapp, synthy stuff. The voice I recognise, but I don't recognise her in this more modern darkness kind of vibe. Not darkness as the band, but the darkness of the music. Bit Massive Attack, bit Goldfrappy, but it's hard-hitting and really cool analog sounds. And I'm thinking, bloody hell. But still rip-roaring guitar in it. Anyway, it happened to be Into a Swan, which was Susie's first single off of the album Manta Ray, which is what they just recorded. Clive Deamer on drums, great band. They're all kicking. So he comes back in, and I didn't guess it. I said, I know the voice, Charlie, I just can't place it. And he said, well, Susie and the Banshees. And of course it is, Yeah. And I had a feeling he was going to ask me something. But, of course, you don't want to presuppose. I've been in the business long enough to think, I thought you were going to ask me. Oh, no, I just wanted you to hear it. Do you like it? Great, let's have a beer. Because that's happened before, and I've gone, oh, I thought I was in then, you know. So I didn't presuppose. And he said, great, let's go outside and chat. So we went outside to his garden, and he's like, you know, what are you doing at the moment? I said, well, teaching mostly. Things are a bit quiet. It's a little bit of a lull for me at that point. So it's a bit quiet. I'm earning good money teaching at Millfield School and Sherborne, 2 private schools, making a nice bit of wonga, enjoying a nice flat in Camden Crescent in Bath. I'm enjoying life, you know.
Yeah.
But I miss gigging. And he said, well, yeah, maybe you might not want to do this then, you know, because that's quite a lot to give up. And I said, well, what are you saying? He said, well, basically, Clive, you know, has done the album, and he's a great drummer, isn't he? He said, but he's with Robert Plant most of the time, you know, and he's touring, you know, and please don't think you're second best at all. He said, but he's busy, and he's done the album, but he's already said, I can't give up the Robert gig. And he said, the only person we could think who could do the brushes, because there's a track with brushes on the album. He said, I need somebody who plays brushes. Somebody who can play to a click is a definite. He said, I know you can do that. Someone who can trigger while playing. He said, I know you can do that. Someone who's got chops. I know you've got that. You know, so I was like, yeah, okay, so what you're saying? He said, but do you want it? And he said, but if you enroll in this, you need to know it's a 2 or 3 year thing. He said, I'm going to tell you now. He said, there's TV involved. And of course, we all watched it at that time, you know, later and stuff. Yeah. And I said, well, really? He said, yeah. He said, but don't go sharing this. I said, no, I won't. He said, this is her first thing solo ever, because she's been with Budgie. They've divorced. The band obviously was way gone anyway.
Yeah,
she's nervous about this, you know, coming out on her own, presenting with a new band. But she's going to do later. And I was just like, I want in. You know, I'm in. He said, what about the schools? I said, yeah, no, I'm going to be losing a fair bit a month, but
fuck
I'm
the
in.
Kids. Get me on the road.
Yeah, sod the fun. And of course, I didn't have one then, which was freedom. So, I mean, I had a girlfriend, but she was on board with it. She was cool. And so that was it. And then we started rehearsals at the huts out at Real World. And yeah, that was then it was kind of, I'd done stuff and I'd never been bounded around. I know, as I say, but all of a sudden, and I've done a few clinics, but all of a sudden, this was something that was going to make, if I wanted to seize it, you know, carpe diem, whatever it is, you know, if I'm going to seize the day, it's going to be now.
Yeah.
So the minute I started rehearsing, I contacted Rhythm. Well, I'd done a few things before, but I was like, great, we'll have you as an interview. Great. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, we'll get you in. A proper interview, not just like a side thing. Proper interview, 2-page interview. And all of a sudden, these things open up. And I started touring, did the TV, did Jonathan Ross, did all the gigs, went to America, you know, all around Europe, all the stuff we did. TV there as well. And it's just like, oh my God. Yeah, and I'm going to go with this. And my business head came on, and the clinic started to roll in. Sonal started to put me up a bit higher. I was in all the catalogues. All of a sudden, all the things you want as a kid started to happen. And I was only in my early 30s, and or mid 30s, so it was a good time because I'd learnt enough. From 8, I started at 9, but I'd learned all the stuff we've talked about all the way up. You know, the pros, the cons, the defeats, the wins, all the way up. Yeah. Good gigs, bad gigs, all the way up to this. And I thought, right, I'm gonna take it.
You're wise enough to know what was good for you, and what was maybe a trapping of success or the wrong decision for you. Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm gonna sail on it, and I'm gonna do everything I can do here. And I contacted Modern Drummer; they were suddenly interested, and I started writing lessons for them, which was like, this Modern Drummer. This is the one everybody in any airport around the world reads. I mean, Rhythm is a good one, but Modern Drummer is everywhere. There could be a guy in Hong Kong sat there waiting for a plane, you know, looking at my lessons, you know. And, you know, I did like probably 3 or 4 editions of it, but that's still something that I'm really proud of, because that's quite an achievement for me, you know, and I don't care if people did more, but for me, it means a lot, because that was the magazine.
Yeah.
And then coming back,
it's validating, isn't it?
Absolutely. You say you've been published in those magazines, and Rhythm's good, and Drummer at the time, which was still around then. But Modern Drummer was kind of like, and even Rhythm were like, no, we've got to say that's what we're basing ourselves on, is that one.
Yeah.
And then Rhythm got more involved, Drummer got me more involved, and all the clinics, the Rhythm Tech course started to come in, all these things started to happen, and more lecturing came in, more clinics, and I just went with it. You know, I think you have that time where you just have a good time, get pissed, do what you're going to do. Not sure if I should say that, or get drunk. And you enjoy it, you play the lifestyle, you come home, you spend all your money, and you have stories.
Yeah.
Or you build on that. you still have your stories, you still have your fun, you still spend a bit of money, but you build on that. And I came home and I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, this is my time. This is my time now. You know, it's like the Goonies. This is our time. When they're down there, they're like, this is our time. We have to do it, you know. It's true. And I relate a lot of things to movies like that. I can't help it. But it's our time. And it was my time. So, yeah, I seized the day and I made sure that I did everything that I could within reason, you know, not trying to put yourself everywhere, but Mr. Johnny, you know, I'm here. It was more kind of like, right, I'm here, I've got this now. People are seeing me differently, and I'm just going to use that because people do start seeing you differently. You're no different than the day before I went up to see Charlie to listen to the single. I was no different, but and I wasn't going to change, so I just kept that going, and it just worked. And I got on well with Susie, made some great contacts there, and that shared, you know, some. Actually, that was before Simple Minds, so. So the Simple Minds thing come after that, and obviously the golf wrap and all the later things you mentioned were after that. But it was all kind of, that was my moment. And I could easily have gone back to teaching after 3 years and let it go and had the stories and been, oh, I did that once. But I wanted to keep it going. I didn't want it to be just once. Yeah. And I wanted to build on my teaching and my clinician side of my writing, you know, lesson side of that for magazines. I wanted to take all that further. Yeah. And I ended up going to Drum Channel in America with Don Lombardi, hence why I did my show there. And they interviewed me for an hour. I had my own show. You know, like someone, Kurt Pasquare, who's a great drummer, interviewing me, you know, about my career up to that point. It's like insane. You know, I mean, I'm not. I mean, in a way, I work to be there, but it's like... Thomas Lang's on next week. Steve Smith was on last week. And I'm sat in the middle of this from Corsham. Yes, a little Corsham boy, you know, like... who's worked bloody hard and keep working, but, you know... Yeah. And Don was so lovely, and he was so into my playing with traditional grip, and he was like, you know, you British drummers have got a lovely style in the way you play your left hand and all this. And we still talk about it. We did like a podcast... a kind of Zoom chat thing every Saturday through lockdown, and he was one of the guests. And of course, I'm a DW guy now anyway, and he still talks about my left hand. So he's got a really nice left hand. It's very American and like the European way of playing. And we just bonded, and that's how I got the DW thing, because literally Drum Channel is next door to DW. They're over the road from each other. Right. And he said, I know you're a Sonor guy, but come and have a look at the factory. And Sonor were great, and they're still amazing drummers, but a few things had happened that I wasn't very happy with on various tours. That things, you know, I mean, I love it. I'm not going to say any bad things, but things just didn't go quite as well as I hoped. At some important times in my career. So,
right.
DW, I saw the
feel
drum.
they sort of dropped the ball a couple of times, or maybe one too many when it really counted. Yeah, and as you can,
hopefully you can tell, I know I'm not Jack DeJohnette. I know I'm not Steve Smith. I know I'm not Jojo May. I'm not one of the front big guys. I know that, but I'm a steady worker, and I'm always working with their product. And I was always doing adverts and taking pictures of it, and I was doing my thing, you know. And anyway, a few times it didn't quite work out. So. Which can be embarrassing when you're playing, you know, in a club of 5,000 people and you've got gear that isn't quite what it should be, you know. And right. You were promised. Anyway, so I went on
DW are a step up, though, aren't they?
Well, they were
on the global scale.
Man, they Pearl did it, and then DW topped them. You know, they managed to just get it right. And they left me in Candyland. If you've seen those clips of Thomas Lang in Candyland in DW when it's all the kits set up. I got left in there. Terry Bozio's son, I can't think of his name now, was my guide. And he left me in there. My girlfriend at the time, we in a hire car, she went off to a shopping mall, which was just down the road. So I was left in there for like 2 hours playing all these kits. Amazing. Like literally is Candyland. It's like Willy Wonka time, you know. Matron. And I found the kit that I really liked the most was the Collectors. And it was really close to the SQ2. Sound wise, and I tuned anyway, we did 4 days there, and he took us out with his wife. Dom was a gent. He's such a lovely, he's so old school. It reminded me of Steve Gardner and my days at Assembly Music, old school kind of. I'm Bob Zildjian, you know, a shovel's a shovel, and that's it, you know, and it just straight down the line, but very fair people. Yeah. And we spent 2 days not being with him as well. We went touring around LA and bits and bobs. And the last day we came back and we were going to go up to Big Sur, you know, up in California in the mountains and everything. Right. You know, we had a cabin up there, which is amazing. But on the last day, I wanted to see him to say our goodbyes to everybody. And I said, Don, I've thought about this for 2 days. And he said, I think I know what you're going to say. And I said, well, could we go into your office. And in this office, he's got this big table. And he had pictures of like Buddy Rich at the time on a DW kit, which not many people knew he played for a little while, but he didn't get on with it. But so I'm sat in this like, it's like seeing an old Beatles record or something that nobody knows about or something. It's like, whoa, no one knows about this shit. Yeah. And he said, come and sit down, because we'd have lunch and we'd sit together on the end of the table, me and my girlfriend. And I said, I'm going to sit at the end because I want to feel like we're in a business meeting. And he was like, you Brits are crazy, man. So I sat at the end like you do see in films. And I was like, yeah, it's not all right. It's not a huge table, but it was reasonably big. And I said, Don, I think you know what I'm going to ask you. And I feel awkward doing this because I've been with a certain company. Well, I've said it already, but for so many years. Yeah, Son, I guess so, 15 years. And you've heard me say some things, and I've heard that you've got enough kits in all these locations around the world. And anyway, and he said, look, I know what you're going to say, and the answer is yes. But the answer is you're going to have to. That was October or September. He said you're going to have to wait till next May to get whatever kit that you order from us. And if you're happy with that wait, then we're happy to have you on board. Right. And I was like, oh my God. I said, I feel so guilty in one way, but in another way, I feel so happy, because if you can really, I love the drums. I love that collector series. And if you can promise me that I can turn up at the Fillmore clubs in America and have a collector's or jazz series or one of the top lines and not one of nothing wrong with the Pacific kits. I know they're good, but having a Pacific kit on stage, and I'm a DW player, like he said, that would never happen. He said, we've got enough hire kits and loaner kits all around the world. He said that if you had a festival, if you had, Dave Phillips, actually, the rep told me this. If you had V Festival, Reading, Nebworth, all these other festivals on, and most of them are American or European drummers that play DW, which is true. He said, we still have more kits to go around. And I'm like, I'm in.
You got me. Yeah.
But the things people say, oh, not the product then. It's like, no, the product was amazing. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have done it. These people that do that, you see people jumping ship all the time for the money or for the deal. They get sussed out pretty quickly. And they're, I'm certainly not going to mention names, but we all know drummers who do that, and guitarists and whatever. And that's a very short-lived thing, because Dave at Hardcase told me a thing. And again, Steve Gardner at Assembly Music was like this. It's that old school thing. It's like it's a classic thing. When you're on your way up, be nice to all the people on the way up. Yeah. Because on the way down, you're going to meet them all again, and they're going to go, all right, mate. Yeah, you're all right. You're coming back down again. And it was that thing of like, drum companies aren't stupid. They're going to see you rhythm Ludwig 1 month. 6 months later, you're on Gretsch. Then you're on Yamaha. And then eventually companies go, nah, you're not coming here, actually, because we don't need that, because you're going to get the kit, you're going to get all the adverts, we're going to pay you, and then you're going to bugger off to another one in 6 months' time, like pork pie or whatever.
Yeah, and you damage that brand, because people go, oh, well, what was wrong with DW then? And There's nothing wrong with DW. It's just they're being a bit of a whore.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And, and I thought, I'm not getting into that game, and I'm going to go with this company because, one, I like Don, two, I love the drums, and then two, I love the drums, one, I like Don, and vice versa. It's like, I love the way this, and it's such a small company considering how they've dominated the drum world. Believe you me, that it's a big factory, but it's not ridiculous. It's not like the Zildjian factory or something. It's quite a small little affair, really, in a way. And of course, they know everyone's names, and that could be a bit of PR there. But I love that, and it was a really nice sort of atmosphere. And to get to Candyland and play the drums and actually like them, because I wasn't sure if they were just going to be faceless drums that, because certain companies I love, they're all brilliant, but I just don't feel right behind them. You just don't get a vibe. As I said, I'm not going to say any names, but there are some that off camera or podcast I could talk about, but with DW it just felt right, and they felt like, because they are like the old Ludwigs but more modern, same kind of shell designs but bringing it up to date, without all the vintage stuff that goes with it. And so they sound good and they feel good, and the hardware's good. So anyway, so that's what happened, and so that's how that picked up. And then they took me under their wing, and I do clinics for them, and I do this podcast playlist parties. I did one again last week.
Tell me about this DW playlist party. And tell me about that.
It was such a great idea. Jules came up with the idea. Jules Thomas over in LA, who does a lot of the press stuff and artist relations and stuff like that. She's a sweetheart. She's amazing at her job. She contacted me. I've seen a few of them on YouTube, I just stumbled across it. Maybe they sent an email out through lockdown, the hard lockdown, and I just didn't see it because we all had emails aplenty, and so I missed it anyway. The adverts, and I saw Mike Clark, who's on the second Headhunters album, Thrust. He's a great drummer. He did all that live stuff. He was on it, and he's also a great jazz drummer. And I remember getting involved, and he answered one of my questions or joined in on something I said about Love Supreme, and Tony Williams or so. Anyway, and I wrote to her the next day, and I said, Jules, this thing you're doing, I didn't know this is great. You're picking drummers to talk about for an hour or half hour or 20 minutes, whatever they want, about 5 of their favourite songs or drummers or what. And she said, yeah, do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, what a great idea. And I just thought it was a really positive thing for them to do in lockdown. Then, of course, Mike Dolbear started interviewing. We did one as the Palace Drum Clinic. We started doing one every Saturday, which is what I mentioned earlier. And we had some great drummers on, like Carl Palmer and all sorts of people. So yeah, then she asked me to do it, and I really loved it, and I really enjoyed it. And then she said, look, you're really good. Do you want to do another one? And I said, yeah, I want to do 20 more of them. And actually, since the last one, some people have said to me, are you doing podcasts? Would you be interested in doing this? So a few other avenues have opened for me through that, which again, I either sit on or I do them. I don't know yet. Because as you know, doing this sort of thing takes time and a lot of your time and effort, and it's difficult. But
they stay forever, and it's another... It's not. It may not be enough. I don't know if they're paying you. It may not be another revenue stream, but it's another way of people. It's another audience.
That's what she said, and some of them are really short. Some are like 15, 20 minutes, and that's cool. But as you can tell, I like to go on a bit, and I get really into it, and that's why people have said to me, "I love your passion. I love you." So who knows? But that's how that started, and as I say, I've just got Dave Phillips is. I keep going on about these lovely people, but they're also dealing with Gretsch, remember, and LP, DW, of course, and they've got other things as well. I'm trying to think Pacific. They've got a few things now under the umbrella of DW because they saved Gretsch basically when they were going down. But what's nice about it, they saved Gretsch, but didn't say Gretsch by DW. It's just Gretsch. They said, look, here's some revenue. You're back up and running. We want nothing else to do with it. Yeah. Which is great, because most companies would go, right, you're Gretsch by DW. But they've totally respected it. Don is that sort of old school. But Dave I could contact, and he's got all these artists to deal with, much bigger than me as well, to deal with. And I can send them an email. Within an hour, 2 hours max, I'll get an email back with an answer. Or I can't get to you right now, Rob, but leave that with me, I'll get on it. And whatever I need doing, he will resolve that day or the next day. It's unbelievable. And he was on one of our PDC drum chats, which are all on YouTube if people want to see them, and the Palace Drum Clinic. But he just said, it's what I do. But I was like, Dave, how do you do it? Like, how do you have the headspace? You must be writing everything down. He said, well, it's my job, and I'm just good at it. And it's like, you are. Without you, for instance, I was rehearsing at Nick Allen's place with Susie. I didn't have my kit because he was right, May. It didn't come in time. We were doing 2 gigs at the Royal Festival Hall for Yoko Ono. That's how I met Yoko. Doing her... As you do.
You just do playing for Yoko Ono.
As that was I couldn't say anything that day. I was just like... that's the closest I'm going to get to John Lennon. I mean, my God. Yeah. So we were doing the Meltdown Festival, which goes on every year, but she was the curator that year. So, of course, as the curator, as a very strong woman, she got very strong women performers. And she got, what's her name from the Slits, and she also got Susie. And Susie sold out. The first gig sold out within minutes, really. And then the next minute I'm getting an email saying, can we do the next night or the Monday? So we did the Friday and the Monday, I think, or Saturday and the Monday, something like that. And we were the only people doing 2 gigs that sold out. But there's loads of artists on. I mean, some couldn't, but we could. And that was just incredible. And I said, Dave, right, I've got a hire kit for you. We can get you a DW kit. I thought, I'm not doing it on another kit. I want to go straight in. It's a great London Drum Company. I've got oodles of them. What do you want? I said, well, what have they got? It's got a nice black diamond one and with black hardware. I said, that's the one for Susie. That's the one. Like, I'll have it. Black hardware and everything sounds wicked. So it came, and she's rehearsing at a Holt with us, at Nick Allen's place, Narm Studios, which is a great place. But there's Van Morrison. They've all been there. But anyway, it was just weird to think that Susie was there for some reason. I don't know why. My drum tech comes in and he goes, oh, that's the kit. I said, yeah. He said, it's not ported. I said, no, I know. I said, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? He said, well, we can attack it with the scissors and a knife and all that. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I said, look, it's a London Drum Company's kit. I said, they've given us a white one, but none of them are ported. But I said, don't worry about it. And he said, well, that's okay. I said, look, before you do anything, let's just rehearse like that today. I'll get on with Dave. And this was the first thing I have dealing with him. And I rang him up. I said, Dave, it's Rob Bryan. I've just got on board. He said, yeah. No, I got an email about a new indoor. So he said, nice to meet you. I said, yeah, nice to meet you. I said, I'm rehearsing. I've got the London Drum Company kit. Thanks for the number. I've sorted it out. He said, oh, that's fine. No worries. He said, I could have done it. I said, no, I'll do it. And I did it. I said, but look, I need a drum head. And he said, what do you mean? I said, sorry. What I mean is the front head. I need not just a random drum head. I need my bass drum head ported. And I don't want to start attacking it. He said, well, you could, I said, have you got one that you could send? Also a white one and a black one, so the lighting guy can see which one he wants, or a clear one. And he said, yeah, that's no problem. He said, whereabouts in London? I said, that's the thing. We're not. I said, we're in deepest, darkest Wiltshire. He was like, what? I said, yeah, I know. He said, what, real world? And I said, no. No, we're away about 10 minutes from there. He said, bloody hell. I said, I know. I said, usually we do, but it's booked. So we're at this lovely studio called Nine Studios. So it's really character. It's a lovely place. And he said, oh, right, okay. He said, all right, well, leave it with me. And I said, okay. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, nothing. I said, just give me the address or text me the address in a minute or email it to me. Don't do it on the phone because there could be problems with mishearing things. Send it to me and I'll get it to you. Sure enough, I turned up at 12 o'clock the next day. That must have been lunchtime or something. I turned up at 12 o'clock the next day or 1 o'clock to start just the rehearsals and stuff and just sound checking. She wasn't going to come into 3 or 4. And I go in and drum roadies are like, yeah, sorted. I said, what do you mean? He said, the head. He said, look, I'll put the white one on. And I was like, what have we got? He said, we've got a clear one, we've got a black one, and we've got a white one. All ported. And I was like, but it's, back in the day, if it had been another company, I'd have to wait a week for it to come, and then it was the next day. I mean, that was the start of it going on. Yeah. And it's just been golden since then,
Yeah.
Anything I've wanted or asked for, Dave is on it. And if you can't help me, you'll let me know straight away or point me into the direction of someone who can. And when I'm at a trade show, he'll message me and say, look, Rob, I've got 2 minutes. I could come and meet you for a coffee. And we meet up, It just makes you feel the family thing, which I remember being with Sonal back in the day and assembly music, that thing I get from DW, but it's longer lasting than that one, unfortunately, with how that ended with the company. But of course they still make brilliant drums, of course they do. I mean, I'd never say anything else, but and they always said they'd have me back. But the thing is, I don't need to, because I've had some great times and some great stuff and some great records made on it, and it's out there, and YouTube clips of me with Susie and all that, it's all out there. But this is a new thing, and I say new, 10 years or so now, but yeah, it's just been amazing. And the drums perform every time. And some people say they're a bit faceless. And I go, no, I get it. You want to play something more quirky. And I get that. But the thing is, when you're turning up at Real World or wherever I'm going to turn up, I want my drums to perform. And they do. Yeah. With a bit of tweaking. Sometimes if I've got a tune in, that's fine. But I'm not worried about my performance plus the kit sounding crap or it moving or it does its job. And it's got character, and everyone's happy. I mean, I'm a workman. I need my equipment to do what I need it to do. Yeah. I don't need to be quirky and detune when I'm playing a take. I mean, I get all that sort of custom drum stuff, and it's brilliant. It is, but I want something that's going to last on the road. I want something that's going to be there every time I hit it. Every time I play it. And DW are more than delivering on every scale.
And tell me about the cymbals. You've got your own range of cymbals.
Well, I did. Yeah, I did. That's another...
You did or you do?
I did. They're still out there, I guess, or maybe they're not. But yeah, Bosphorus was another great relationship, which I had for 10 years. Eventually, culminating in my own range called the XT editions, which was brilliant. But again, when things got a bit taxing, and it wasn't money I was asking for, because I can't ask for that, but I just needed backup. But again, I don't want to say any bad things. They're lovely cymbals and they're lovely people, but we just had a disagreement. So how things in life work is wonderful. But a guy that used to distribute some stuff in Italy kind of parted company with them as well. And he always said to me, if you need another company, keep me in mind, because I'm going to get another cymbal company. You know, I can't quite work with this. I'm going to go elsewhere. And I was like, I'm not going to leave Bosphorus, but yeah, nice one, you know. But then this thing happened, and I was like, And then bugger me if he didn't message me a little while afterwards saying, I've got a new range of cymbals. Would you be interested? Designed in Italy, but made and forged in Turkey, which of course is the place where everyone wants their cymbals made. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. He said it's called Vulcan. And I was a bit like, oh, you know, live long and prosper, you know, and which I love Star Trek. That generation of Star Trek I love. And I was a bit like, oh, okay. But I'm just about to go on tour with Lorena McKinney. I was about to go to South America. And I said, when are the cymbals going to get here? And I said, I'm going next week. He said, they might get there beforehand. They got there the day before I left. And I had this sort of like, I haven't told the band I'm going to take them. Can I take them on as hand luggage? Yes, I could, but that's my case. I'm going to South America for 3 or 4 weeks. I've already got so I thought I'm going to leave them here. I don't know if they're going to sound like even. So I left them. Went over there, played DW, of course, but I had a load of, you know, higher cymbals or loan cymbals, which were Sabians or Zildjians. Some were great, some were not so great. You know, my drum tech, Johnny, would message me and say, they're dogs tonight. And you're like, oh, God. And I'm playing with Lorena McKinney, which is very ethereal, very in your face with strings and everything, music. And I'm playing these cymbals that some nights were like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm playing in these like 5,000 sort of seater places, and some are bigger, you know, some are big arenas. I'm thinking, what am I doing? You know, like, I felt really let down that something had happened just before that with the company. And I went home, and of course, we made it sound good. Nothing was really that bad. But I went back and I was like, I can't do this. I'm not doing that again. Like, how did I end up in this situation, you know? Yeah. And after a few days of coming back round, you know, from jet lag and stuff, I went back out to Nick Allen's studio with this box of cymbals, like, put them in the car. And you know what it's like? Sometimes when you get something new, you're a bit like, oh, I don't want to hit it because it's going to be shite, you know? Like, and I didn't even set the kit up. And I went and said hello to Nick and told the stories of being in Chile and Brazil, you know, all this stuff. And it was an amazing tour. And it was the start of this world tour, which was still on before COVID. And I put these stands up, and I thought, I'm not even going to set the kit up. And I had this sort of like attitude of, oh, let's just try them. And I got them out, and I thought, oh, they look nice, put them on stands. And he's like, okay, well, there's a stick. And it really was kind of like, I've been touring for a month. Let's see what happens. It was just, and I'm starting hitting these crashes, and I'm like, 4 of them, and I've got 4 rides in there and 4 pairs of, and I'm just playing these cymbals. I'm going, and it's like, hang on a minute, I quite like that. Let's leave those 2 on. Let's take these 2. What about the rides? And it's, again, it sounds like it's a story like, oh, it wasn't true, but there wasn't a dog in there. To my ear, I mean, it's subjective, I know, but to my ear, it's like, oh, that's a jazz cymbal, that's a rock cymbal, that's like a Ringo lay into it, sort of like feedback cymbal, like Tomorrow Never Knows rise cymbal. I can lay into that. What about this one? Oh, that's quite dry. Interesting. Get the hi-hats out. Oh, that's quite wet. That's good for that. Oh, that's quite dry. Oh, my God, that's quite splashy. All of a sudden, I was looking at these cymbals going, I'm going to set the kit up. And I set the kit up, and I didn't think I was going to. And I ended up staying there all afternoon. And wife's going, you coming back anytime today? You know, and I'm like, not yet. You know, I'll get in trouble. I don't care. I'm playing these cymbals. And then Nick came in, bless him. And he said, you know, what do you think? And I said, they're amazing, Nick. I'm not taken by the name, though I love the Vulcan thing, but people will take the piss, but they're amazing cymbals. So I contacted him. He said, look, have them. That's on us. Have them. Get started. See how you feel. And I said, that's fine, you know. And, of course, it was at that juncture, the other people around me, that point, people were saying, hang on, you're Carpe Diem. This is your point to go to Zildjian or Sabian again and try and get back on that ladder. And I said, yeah, I suppose. I said, but the thing is, my ear is telling me I like these cymbals, right? And I'm going to like the Zildjians, I'm going to like the Sabians, of course. I'll find something. You always find something you like we said about the music. You find something. You try enough of them. These are straight off the bat. I mean, I can't remember. Remember, I'd been through all this stuff with Bob Zildjian, this cymbal training. So, of course, my ear, that's why I can't believe it. I'm like going, how can there not be one dud in here? It doesn't stand, that's the law of averages says there's got to be one dog that even I don't like, you know? Yeah. And there wasn't. And I was like, oh. And he's got faith. He's given me this, like, a lot of cymbals, like, you know. And they're not rubbish. If they're rubbish, again, I can't afford to play rubbish because people are going to say, Rob, why have you got those? Go and get your Bosphorus's or your old Silvertons. What are you doing with this crap? And you can't have that when you're performing. You just can't have it, you know. I got pride in what I do. So, and I started to take them to sessions and sheepishly put them on stands, you know, and say, you're going to like these. And they're like, oh, okay. And I'd be doing the session and thankfully, like, you don't think about it, but no one's saying anything. And it's great. So go back and listen to the, you know, we've been tracking, let's have a listen. And I'm like, what do you think of the cymbals? You know, and all the sound engineers were like, great. Don't really have to roll much off the top at all. They're actually just sitting in the mix. Great. And of course, as we all know, that's a good cymbal. If you don't have to do anything to it, or it's a bit and it was happening at Real World, it was happening at NAMM Studios, it was happening at Riverside Studios, which is out at Bath Eastern, you know, and they're all studios that I respect, and I'm working with big names at all these places as well. It's not like it's just little. There's little stuff as well, of course, but I'm expected to be shot down at any minute. Someone say, "Get your Bosphorus's back out of the case." I know they're in the car. Go and get those. These are shite, you know. It's like that David Brent thing, you know. Go get the guitar. Get the guitar. It's sort of like that, you know. And it didn't happen, and I ended up taking them on the next leg. We rehearsed at Millennium Studios, which is like a big aircraft hangar just in Milton Keynes, where Phil Collins, all these people go to. And I was there with Lorena, and the sound guy comes up. Well, actually, our sound guy is the guy who does Phil Collins' sound, front of house, Rob Waite, and he's going to be doing the Genesis thing when it happens. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
I think I've seen him on a bunch of documentaries I've been watching recently about Phil Collins. He's a biggish chap.
I don't want to say
he was in the 90s, maybe.
I don't know if that was him then. He's been doing the sound on the last Phil Collins World Tour, which was I don't know, was it Not Dead Yet tour? It might have been, or something.
There was a Not Dead Yet, and then there was a final tour.
He's done both of those.
Have you seen the slight tangent? Have you seen the documentary of that world tour, that final one? Yeah. You see it where they do the big £2 million check and then they get locked in the.
Yes,
it's so Spinal Tap, isn't it?
Oh, it's really Hello Cleveland. It really is. Yeah.
She's like, they've locked us in. I can't believe they've locked us in.
It just shows you what life on the road is like, though. These sort of random, crazy things happen all the time that people wouldn't believe when you tell them these stories. They're like, that doesn't happen. It's like, yes, it does. Things happen all the time. You know, people get left behind. These weird things happen. You know, I got left behind once. You know, we played London. Oh God, not Hammersmith Odeon. It was with Susie. It was one of the big London gigs. Anyway, one of the big theatre gigs. It wasn't Coco. It was another one. Anyway, and I got very drunk.
Hall.
No, I did that with Lorena last year. The year before. No, not that one. I'd remember that. Not the Festival Hall. There was another one. Anyway, not Town and Country. No, definitely not that. Anyway, not the Forum. Oh, it'll come to me. Anyway, but I got very, very drunk that night, and we were staying round at Key West, which is where a lot of the BBC people stay, and anyone who's doing anything in London on TV and stuff stays at Key West. So when you go there, it's one of those places you see people at the bar, but you don't want to appear that you really care, you know. You say, well, yeah, that could be so-and-so over there, and Damon Albarn's over there. Oh, who cares, you know. Wow, that's Damon Albarn, brilliant, you know. And what's her name was riding high at the time? Oh, God, she had a Cockney accent. Young singer.
What, Adele?
No, before her, it was... Kate Nash, is it?
Oh, yeah, Kate Nash, yeah.
It was Kate Nash. We'd done a few TV shows with her, and her entourage... Susie, of course, is the eternal punk queen, right? But, of course, even back in the day, she wasn't really into the spitting. She wasn't really into the violence. She was into the art of punk. You know, that's what she was into. The clothes, the lifestyle, the poetry, the look... You know, and I didn't realise all that was going on until I worked with her, really. I thought it was a bunch of idiots sometimes, you know, because that's what BBC told you they were. They're all troublemakers, and it's not true, you know. Anyway, that's political again. Let's not get into that. And she played on a few shows with us, but she trashed dressing rooms, this Kate Nash. She was a bit of a, you know, and Susie didn't like it. She was a bit like, well, that's sort of a bit uncool, you know, actually, you know, because we didn't do that particularly. Anyway, so... And her drummer was lovely, though. He was a really nice guy, very quiet. So I'm talking to him at the bar. And Ted's with me, who's the percussionist in the band, playing mallet cat and hand percussion and congas and that. And he stood with me, and I'm a bit drunk, and I'm going, yeah, you'll sing a Kate Nash. She's really up herself and all this. She's a bit of a, and all this stuff. And he's going, oh yeah, this glass. And all the time, it's a bit like a comedy show, like Ted's going, Rob. Yeah, Ted. And who does she think she is? And anyway, I turn around and she's behind me. But she's dressed as a carrot. This is true. This is a great story. She's dressed as a carrot because she's just been doing some fundraising thing on BBC.
Jesus Christ.
And I turn around and she's dressed as this carrot. She sort of goes, walks away, and I'm like, you're the one dressed as a carrot, you idiot. Or something stupid. Anyway, but I got so drunk that I went back up to my hotel room, feeling like a rock star.
Yeah.
Missed all my alarms.
Yeah.
Usually I'm Mr. Keen. I pack up the night before, go to get showered, ready to go. Everything's ready to go. So if I get up late, case is packed. Not this time. Yeah. Stuff everywhere. Get the phone call. 20 minutes, we're out of here. Tour manager. Yeah. 15 minutes later, I'm still in the bath. Why I'm in the bath, I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Right.
So Ted rings me and says, right, Rob, we're in the bus. You hear that sound? That's the engine going. We're in the tour bus. We're going to leave. So I finally get my stuff together, go downstairs, get in the bus. They're like, hey, he's here. Oh, don't. I feel a bit rough. Go straight up to my bunk, get in the bunk. Eventually stop moving. I'm feeling a bit Tom and Dick by this time. I'm feeling like both top and bottom is about to let loose. So I think you probably shouldn't be putting this on the podcast, but I think, oh my God. So we get to Heston Services, which is the first one out of London, and obviously into the last one into London.
Yeah.
We stop there. I get out. I pass the keyboard player, Amanda. So Amanda, she sees me leave, to be fair, which always annoyed me a bit. Anyway, so I go into Heston Services, and it's trouble, So I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh God, I think I'm just about alive now. Wash my hands, go outside. It's the daylight. It's like, oh God. What was the big shadow of a big bus is now an empty space. And I go out the other side and think, hang on a minute. No, this is, So I go out the other side of the services, and out there thinking, no. We definitely came in this way. And I'm stood there. And thankfully I didn't have pyjamas on or anything. I was dressed, but I was like, oh. So luckily I had my phone, because they could have gone all the way home. So when someone's travelling, you can hear it on the phone, and it was Ted. I said, Ted, what's going on? He said, Robert, darling, why are you ringing me from your bunk? And I said, I'm not in my bunk. I said, where are you? He said, well, we're just off the junction and we're on our way down the motorway. And he said, where are you? I said, I'm at Heston Services. So he started pissing himself laughing. And I said, what? He said, well, do you want us to come and get you? And then off the phone, he was like, he's not in his bunk. And then why didn't he tell somebody? And I was like, Amanda saw me get off the bus. Anyway. So they said, right, we're going to have to turn around and come back and get you. So, of course, they have to come the next junction, which is Reading or something. They come off, come back on the other side, go all the way into London again to come back out to get me. And I thought, I'm going to get killed. Now, it was the end of the tour anyway, but the bus driver pulled his curtain back and he opened this little window. He's like, oh, you wankers. He's laughing, And then I said, oh, God, okay, I'm so sorry. Then the door opens and Steve's wife comes out. And she just starts puking all over the floor. Maybe you shouldn't be sharing this, but it's like one of those moments where I thought I was in trouble, and I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I think you need to stop right now. Yeah, I thought I was in a bad place, but this is far worse. And Steve was like, oh, come on, get on the bus. And Amanda was like, oh, you should have said. I said, you saw me pass you, Anyway, but people do get left behind at times, It does happen. But all these things happen. But Rob said that these symbols I love. He said, I don't have to roll anything off. They just sit in the mix. And I've had them ever since, and I don't care about the fact they're not a name. I'm 50 now, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, there's still some, hopefully, longevity in my career. But I'm not going to get on I've got the drum company I want. I've got vintage stuff that I still play when I want the vintage stuff. And DW know we all do that, and they're more than happy that you use Gretsch or my super classic Ludwig at times and my Ludwig 400. But most of the time when I'm posting online, people see me recording. I do have the DW gear, I love some vintage stuff at the side. But with cymbals, I'm not fussed. I would sooner play a company that I'm really happy with, that have been good to me. I know that, they're never going to be as big as Zildjian. They don't offer those things. But if you think about it, you get on the tree with Zildjian or Sabian, you've got a long way to go because you've got Steve Gadd up there, you've got all these other people, whereas you're on a smaller tree, you get up a bit higher quicker,
Yeah.
So I kind of took that route, and I'm the bespoke thing, which for me works with these cymbals. I said earlier I don't really go for that thing, but this time I did. And I'm more than happy, man. I'm more than happy with what I've got. And the results, are on the records, and they're on the performances, wherever I take them, people are like, oh, weird name, but great cymbals. I'm like, yeah, they are.
I actually kind of like the name. Although I did think about Star Trek immediately. But I like Star Trek, so I'm cool with that.
Me too. And I think they're trying to design some interesting drum gear that maybe has a some sort of link to that. But of course, Gene Roddenberry, all that's going to be well sewn up. So,
I reckon.
But they're in talks with them, so who knows? There might be some sort of thing that comes out. But anyway, the cymbals are great, man, and all those contacts lead me to the Grammy thing I got with Laura Pausini. Though I don't own a Grammy, obviously, I'll have a certificate. But that was through a contact at Real World and Charlie Jones, and the string player with Coldplay, the arranger David Rossi. Through that, it was all these contacts, and I did a tour with David Rhodes. I know you'll know David Rhodes from Peter Gabriel's band. He plays guitar on every Peter album from the very first one up to present day. Touring with David, and that's how we ended up doing the Laura Pausini thing, which was an Italian record but won a Grammy. And then from there, the last thing was that then Michel Polnareff did that thing, and then ended up with the Lorena McKinnett, which was just a session at Real World. Again, Stuart Bruce, a local guy who's a massive engineer. He's done everything from Do They Know It's Christmas, the original one, right the way through to John McLaughlin, and he's done everybody, loads of stuff with Trevor Horn. Anyway, the list goes on. But I get on really well with him. He gets me in to do lots of sessions. And he just rang up one day and said, do you want to come down to Real World to work with this artist? I'd never heard of her, but he said, do a bit of research. Come down tomorrow. I've bigged you up. I know you can do the job. Come on down. And I've always liked Clannad. I've always liked Enya. And she's right in that sphere. And she's had a 20 or 30 year career doing that stuff. And I don't live in that world completely, but I get it. And I do like some of it. So for me, it wasn't such a reach. Again, having this massive palette I could pull from. And she was great because she thought in colours, though she's a great classical musician and a beautiful singer. And she plays harp and accordion as well. She plays just everything, but harp playing is beautiful. And she was thinking colours, like Rob on this. I'm thinking, like there's a darkness. And she was sort of saying this. I'm feeling purple, and I just loved it because I love all that ethereal stuff. I could totally get into it. So and then they asked me. We did the album, and then about 4 months later, I got a call from Pasadena, and it was Brian. Her he's the guitarist in the band, but he co-helps MD, whatever. And he said, do you want to do the world tour? And I was like, yes. And that was that. So that takes us up to the present day. And of course, it's been stopped because of COVID, but we're going to be doing, hopefully, next year. It's already being booked. So some gigs. I can't say too much, but things are happening. And hopefully COVID doing its thing of buggering off, or at least calming down, because we're all getting vaccines. We'll see that we can all get back on the road again soon. So that brings us up to scratch, I think, to the present day. My God, we've been talking for hours. I love it. I knew we'd do this. I knew we'd do it. I just hope my audio's all right.
Big thank you to this week's guest, Robert Bryant. If you want to hear more from him, we have a part 2 out. It's a Beatles special, basically, and it's the preamble chat from this podcast before we got really into it, where basically I can see parts of Robert's collection, and we're talking about the things I can see. He's showing me records. We're basically just having a big muso, nerdy anorak chat, and I think if you guys are into that, you're really going to dig it. For more things, Robert Bryan, we're going to leave links in the show notes descriptions, and we're going to ask you this week to like, subscribe. If you think there's a friend out there that would like this podcast, then please send it to them. Word of mouth is really, really important. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be great. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram. It is @TheGiantPod. You can follow me on Instagram. It is Andy_S1S. This podcast was produced by the sixth Beatle, Harry Williams. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on The Giant Pod.